Islam Moors. I want to welcome you to the House of Reawakening Minds. Tonight, our teacher is the illustrious Grand Sheikh Taj Tarik Bey. Let's receive him.
I want to share with you one of the vital chapters of the Book of the East, which should be shared with most people, no matter what walk of life they are from, to give a better comprehension of the master sages behind your fundamental principles of religion, distinguished from dogma. Most people in what is known as the priesthood have this knowledge, but they usually don't expose this particular chapter because it kind of deals with them a little bit. But if we're going to solve some of the problems that we're faced with on the Earth planet, we're going to have to start dealing with certain realities and truths. And this is one of them. Chapter 8, the Council of the Seven of the World. In every age, since time began, but 7 sages lived. At first of every age, these sages meet to note the course of nations, people, tribes, and tongues, to note how far toward justice and love the race has gone, to formulate the code of law, religious postulates, and plans of rule best suited for the coming age. An age had passed, and lo, another age had come. The sages must convene. Now Alexandria was the center of the world's best thought, and here in Philo's home the sages met. From China came Menster, from India Vidyapati came, from Persia Casper came, and from Assyria Ashbina came, from Greece Apollo came. Methano was the Egyptian sage, and Philo was the chief of Hebrew thought. The time was due. The council met and sat in silence 7 days. And then Menster rose and said, the wheel of time has turned once more. The race is on a higher plane of thought. The garments that our fathers wore have given out. The cherubim have woven a celestial cloth, have placed it in our hands, and we must make for men new garbs. The sons of men are looking up for greater light. No longer do they care for gods hewn out of wood. They seek for Allah not made with hands. They see the beams of coming days, and yet comprehend them not. The time is ripe, and we must fashion well these garments for the race. And let us make for men new garbs of justice, mercy, and love. That they may hide their nakedness when shines the light of coming days. And Vidyapati said, our priests have all gone mad. They saw a demon in the wilds, and at him cast their lamps. And they are broken up, and not a gleam of light has any priest for men. The night is dark. The heart of India calls for light. The priesthood cannot be reformed. It is already dead. Its greatest needs are graves and funeral chants. The new age calls for liberty, the kind that makes each man a priest, enables him to go alone and lay his offerings on the shrine of Allah. And Casper said, in Persia people walk in fear. They do the good for fear to do the wrong. The devil is the greatest power in our land, and though a myth, he dandles on his knees both youth and age. Our land is dark, and evil prospers in the dark. Fear rides on every passing breeze and lurks in every form of life. The fear of evil is a myth, is an illusion and snare. But it will live until some mighty power shall come to raise the ethers to the plane of light. When this shall come to pass, the Magian land will glory in the light. The soul of Persia calls for light. Islam. Wow. If you recognize the message in chapter 8, Council of the Settlement of the World, you will recognize that it's actually a transfer of age. It's a transition from one age into another age. But you'll also recognize the difficulty, not necessarily justified morally or ethically, that the priesthood have with the exposure of information that they themselves have been keeping from the masses, while they have been enjoying the spoils at the expense of the masses, promoting dogma in the name of religion. But one of the things that you will recognize when you start looking at the political platforms or the things that are occurring in the world, you will know when the sages have met, because you will see radical change, very radical, and then it will accelerate. Now, if you know these things, you are prepared. The issue is that many of the masses have not been prepared, not because they couldn't be, and not because they have not the ability to see these things. They've been distracted by the priesthood into dogma systems to put them off guard, and therefore their sensitivity to that which would already communicate with them in nature is dullened. And the priesthood feeds on them at that time. So this is a reflection of the politics that you see taking place on the planet today, whether locally or internationally, is absolutely the same. And so all of the institutions that they have been grooming for raping the people, suppressing knowledge, reaping heavy benefits for themselves, and then pretending to be separate entities within the state structures, all of the veils that they have that have protected them will come down and are coming down. So recognize what you're looking at when you're seeing what you're seeing. And everything that you see reflected in those statements of Scripture are actually reflected in the politics of the world. I'm going to go into the book of Monad Master to share with you some things one of the things that we want to do in due time, and one of the unfortunate things that you have when you're doing what you call, ad hoc lectures and exposures of information, you have not the advantage of workshops, which we need. And we need some of you to step up to the charge of doing some secondary classes that we will have where we'll deal with more specific and refined demonstration of information and dispensation, whether you're dealing with cosmo knowledge or dealing with jurisdictional actions with the corporate operatives who've been stealing your estate, etc. In the Monad Master, I want to share with you some of the concepts for clearing your mind.
Branching.
This is Monad Master.
Can you explain what a monad is?
Monad is actually like the Atman or the spark of life that people who are really not taught the Gnostic wisdom or true religion just simply loosely refer to as the spirit man or the spirit. That spark of light that is immutable, you can't destroy it, is monad. It's also called Atman. It's like a nuclear light that's actually the minute expression of life that embodies these forms. And it's actually very, very, very small. Now, the monad is usually referred to when it transits into the body or does its work. Then it becomes nomad. The N and the M are reversed. And this is where men, which is the manifest, takes its physical forms and starts going out for experience to bring information back to the monad, which does not die. And that monad is that light, or that is sort of like, imagine in your mind the concept of a small spark in a big pile of wood that you need to fan to keep it brightening up and to begin to ignite, but yet it itself never goes out. You can look at that as the monad. Religion, set up by the ancient ones, is not like almost most things that have been presented, or most philosophical platforms that have been presented to the masses in the name of religion. Most of the masses, when you hear me say, don't get religion, because they really just don't. And it's not their fault. It's not their fault whatsoever. And one of the reasons why I like to read that chapter from the Book of the East is because the priesthood collectively, for want of a more modest phrase, has been actually the problem of the darkness of the world, and the least one charged with it. You know, when you see the stories, like in the Septuaginta, or in the Bible, where you see the priesthood fighting Yeshua all the time, and of course, you know, the priesthood had a meeting to hide his real history, so when you hear the name Jesus, you're talking about Yahusha. All right? The very fight that he had with the priesthood is the nature of what I'm discussing. The same thing with the nature of the positive principles that Prophet Muhammad ibn Abdullah brought to finish the cycle of Yeshua, of Jesus. And as you know, they're distant cousins anyway. And with them running him out of Mecca, and then making a religion out of them running him out of Mecca. You know, you know what I'm talking about? All right. And they ran Jesus out of Galilee. Same principle. All right. Now, there's another side to that deals with the activation of the pituitary, medulla, pineal glands in the body, and the Christ degree. Another issue is what people need to understand. When the monad chooses to come or to transit on the physical plane, they choose their mother. Most of the time, they come back through the bloodline. Usually, that's most of the time. They'll come back through the same bloodline, though they may choose to come on another point of the geographical location of the planet. And they will come in a female energy, a truth argument of facts, and give something to displace it. They will condemn it, or say the person dispensing the information ain't qualified, or they shouldn't be talking to me because they haven't gotten authority from us, type thing. Yeah. And the other deal of it is, when you begin to give people root information of cosmology, you know, sacred science, of the Gnostic wisdom, which means the knowers, those who bear the wisdom. So whether you're dealing with people from a masses perspective, who claim to be, you know, imams or rabbis or shakuns, PhDs, bishops, etc., they're all Gnostics. And of course, they wouldn't want the masses to know that, because the masses would look for a common thread. And if they look for the common thread, they begin to find it. And when they begin to find it, they start recognizing these people are playing with them. And of course, at that point, they begin to lose credibility. Then their clubs begin to fall apart. And what is known as the apostasy takes place. And the apostasy is what you see taking place in these days across the planet. So some of the dynamics that you see taking place in North America, and one of the reasons why it's more, I would say, profound in North America, even though you see some of the dirt, the reflections of their dirt around the world more apparent, you will see the concept of the apostasy taking place in North America stronger than anywhere else on the planet. It will reflect later in other places. Don't get confused the destruction of the war machine that you see in other countries as necessarily that as the first signal. The real signal is that people will lose faith in all of the fiat systems, whether it's the political platform itself, whether it's the finances, the dogmata that they thought was religion, the financial system, the philosophies, everything. That's called the apostasy. That's what you are facing right now. You know, that's what you see. But the advantage of people knowing more about the ancient principles give them more tools to work with as these radical changes take place. Because while these changes begin to take place, it's really not so much a change to the negative, but it's actually a cleanup. But in the process of cleanup, you will get destruction and build at the same time. This is why in common linguistics, they'll refer to it as a great and dreadful day of the Lord. It means there'll be great things and dreadful things at the same time. The key is for you to survive it if you choose to. Meaning that if you choose to survive it because you want more experience, and you want to either contribute to the light or contribute to humanity, and knowing that Rome accelerates their activities to eliminate anyone that bears light. You know, in other words, what occurs is, and what has occurred is that the exposure of information to the general masses, it is no different than taking a bunch of candles to a vampire party and let everybody start lighting them, saying happy birthday to the vampire, and he's trying to tell you don't like the candles. And this is basically what's going on the political realm, and this is what people need to understand. I think a lot of people, because of the way we've been trained, not because they don't have the capacity, are not aware that the priesthood, your politicians, are high priests. The fact that the masses don't know that is one of the things that have kept them safe. Are we clear? And other fact, there is no separation of church and state. The state belongs to the church. You know, these are things that are known by all persons in any secret society and persons who are in politics. And all of your heads of all of your so-called religious orders. Which is again why they don't like people getting into this information, because it starts exposing them by default, not because you're attacking them necessarily. It's because they've been feeding on the public generally. In other words, they're feeders. They're parasites. And when you educate people and they begin to recognize that beliefs are not a negative, they're just for children, you know, and rabbits, things like that. And for adults who aren't willing to deal with reality. It's like a medicine. And so the priesthood, including those who promote those platforms, refer to the dogma that they give the people as religion opiate for the masses, which means it's drug, it's mental drug. In other words, they're playing with your head. The deal of it is, I wanted to share with you some of the concepts, because we're not going to go through the whole book, that I think will help free people from some of the dogma. And most of what we actually present to you is to encourage you to start thinking for yourself. Start opening your mind. Stop being closed-minded. Stop looking at religion from the point of view that some of us are special and the others are not, type thing. You know. and don't misunderstand that you have political anomalies and problems that you have, but you must deal with them based on a political platform, but not on a hatred for humanity or separation in humanity in that sense. So I'll get right into this just to do some sharing, and if you see something that sparks your interest, that sparks your mind, that causes you to go from one chamber of the mind to another chamber of the mind, understand that those principles are taught to priesthood, more direct, where they don't have to learn it on their own, although you would develop that on your own. But the problem that with most people, by them being stagnated by the foods that they eat and by the pharmaceutical platform, which is really part of the war machine, they dull people's minds and poison their bodies so that the electrical system does not operate correctly, and that the alchemical energies and chemistry of the body is actually thrown off. And then that allows the dark priesthood to attack them with psychic attacks. This is why belief systems are so important to the priesthood, because they're actually used to inject psychic attacks. So they'll give you slight truths and then give it an admixture of evil, and then seize upon you, but they'll usually hide behind prophets' name, hide behind Buddha, hide behind Jesus, hide behind Prophet Muhammad, and then they'll change the flavor a little bit more based on what the audience is, which is where you get secularism. You know, just like when Prophet Muhammad was on the scene, he said there shall be no secularism in Islam, which means the truth is one, there is no sect. But they got about 78 of them, as an example. You know, where they got about 58,000 different versions of Christianity. And that's true. You know, do some research, they do. And it'll amaze you how much the priesthood has done to contaminate the platforms, but it's done for selfish gain. Are we clear? It's not a matter of, you know, it's misinterpreted. No, fundamental truth is what it is. 2 and 2 is 4. It's not complicated. Does that change when you get on the other side of the planet? Does it change when you get up beneath the water? Well, it doesn't change in truth of religion, because truth of religion is based on cosmology, cosmogony, the workings of nature, the studies of these things, and it being documented and tried and true for millennia, and they become what is known as maxims. All right, this is why, like anyone who really studies Eastern religions, they're more apt to be exposed earlier to what is called the Hermetic Law, the 7 Hermetic Rules. And that is fundamental. Those will be called maxims. All right? So anyway, let's go into the Monad Master. More serious neophytes and students seeking esoteric knowledge of those spiritual truths which are essential to salvation. And salvation is knowledge. It's not you being brought from some dragons getting ready to eat you. All right, so when you do the etymological study, what is referred to as salvation is really where the priesthood is pulling the people out of the darkness of ignorance, not then saving them from some mystical devil. The darkness of ignorance is usually what you call the clinging to the lower nature of man, or to what is known as the lower self. All right? And so where they bring you to a level, they help bring you to a level of exposed knowledge so that you can at least meet the heart chakra. This is why you see symbolically, when you see old pictures of Yahushua, and they'll have his jalabu open, and you see the exposure of his heart. You see the physical heart there. What it symbolizes that when you get at least to that degree, that you can clearly see without having to leave the body, the higher self and the lower self, the physical and the spirit man, and be able to transform on either side at will. Although that is not all, if you understand. So that would be symbolic of an actual demonstration of what common people refer to as spiritual transformation, or the capacity to go into the physical and into the astral plane and connect directly in the Akashic realm, if you understand. Then you see where, and this is why Yeshua, when you deal with the Gnostic wisdom, and he said, as I am, all men shall be. What I have done, all men can do, and some of you will even do greater works than I have done. He's telling you that there's more degrees. And don't get so caught up in him that you blind yourself to your evolution, your development. He says, I only come to show the way. And so that the people don't get confused, he says, I did not come to do my will, but my Father's will. But you must know that the Father is actually the process of regeneration coming from the mother. This is, again, why they have a symbol of Yahshua in his mother's arms, because she's a symbol of the God principle and reflected into her son. And this is where you get mother-father principle, what you call mother-son. May-son, mother-son, Elohim, which means mother-son. And so Elohim does not mean a masculine God with a turban on, sitting on the throne in the east, above the clouds, God principle. It really means mother, father. And when you deal with the true Trinity, you deal with what is known as mother, father, son. All right? But essentially, you're dealing with the issue that the Stargate, or the bringer of the physical light or experience on the physical plane, is the womb man, or first man. All right? And so this is why symbolically, when you go into ancient Yucatan, ancient Hikupta, Egypt, etc., you'll see what they call the matriarchy principles of all the ancient deities being feminine. Now, for the priesthood to put people in darkness, this is why they have interjected the masculine principle only of the God, what they call the God principle, and why they don't tell people that the word Elohim means mother, father. They'll tell them that it means God without explaining that, while the priesthood themselves know that it means mother, father. But anyway, let's continue. So more serious neophytes or students seeking esoteric knowledge of those spiritual truths which are essential to salvation, gnosis, will gravitate to those who are likewise seeking light, quote unquote. Holy knowledge of the mind, quote unquote, is therefore indispensable. Man will always find himself where he can resolve and solve his problems best. Always contemplate, study, and look at the present conditions involving self and humanity. Self and humanity, for the learning and lessons are weaved within all circumstance. To those who seek the path of light, we greet Law and Master and Vadimekum. Islam means peace, and Vadimekum is of ancient Moabite. Hold on. So, ancient Moabite, Moorish Latin, meaning come into the light. So when in your higher degrees of the secret societies, when you hear them say, Vadimekum, that means come into the light. And your response will be, Miyam. All right? That means I come. Now, be confident in cultivating and using your divine-given reasoning mind. The reasoning mind is to the conscious, quote unquote, of the being what the immune defensive system is to the physical body. Repeat. Be confident in cultivating and using your divine-given reasoning mind. The reasoning mind is to the consciousness of the being what the immune defensive system is to the physical body. Think, stand still, and know. Heaven. Heaven has been perceived by many and most to be located upon a cloud, somewhere in the stratosphere, a place to go, or a special land where no one else of sin has been, and that it can only be reached by way of divine reward for being good or by paying tithes, which are taxes, to the self-appointed priests who have governed over the people. This is the generalized view encouraged by many religious propagandists who are usually seeking followers and guilt-laden tributes of constantly incoming and secured monetary fees. False and misrepresented deals and sales of salvation have been promised to many, coupled with biased and exclusive entries into heaven, quote unquote. Unqualified promises for a fee are so common that most people never examine the obvious violations against the principles of universal spiritual development and common sense. This is due to the fact that many have already given up their reasoning minds at the behest of the trusted money changers. There are souls, quote unquote, who have not advanced yet well enough to see, quote unquote, with clarity, or to know, quote unquote, with the universality of divine truth. Some cannot see through such foresaid false concepts at this present time. We do not begrudge them, chide them for their folly, nor do we condemn them for their vague beliefs and lack of understanding. We know that the world has been deceived on a massive scale, and recognize first our responsibilities as brothers and sisters to ourselves and to them. Our duty is to share information with them in order to change their thinking. Reason will prevail as time passes. Those who know the fundamental truths about civilization and about the unchanging divine principles upon which understanding and overstating are built, that must seek to find a valid format in which to teach the common natural peoples. Truth is the needed remedy to counter many of the opportunists who have institutionalized misgovernment over the people's lives. All will come to right in due time. All must ascend. There are enough advanced humane minds among the people to generate the higher rates of energy necessary for, and remember, energy. Keep that in mind. Higher rates of energy. For the positive changes needed to stimulate and or to be made. The truth of heaven is that it is a divine state of mind and not a place to go. The higher principle and more just, quote unquote, state of mind will and must change and charge the conditions of life to greater heights and heavenly conditions. As we think, gravitating to the higher planes of our mind, on the collective scale of humanity, so it shall be that the grander, and more just, quote unquote, scheme of things be made manifest. This is why the truth of the heaven and mind must be exposed to the masses. The people themselves are the key to their own salvation by way of their own thoughts and thus their deeds. This is like unto the nature of fruit. Heaven is a word which implies the entire etheric world and a divine state of consciousness while in the physical form, quote unquote, or body. This embodies one's coming to or ascending to the greater and higher quality of the consciousness, quote unquote, and knowledge of one's relationship and connectedness, the most omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent divine total and whole of all. To this said total, many would use the short word, term, or title, God. The wise know that the word God is a generic tide, meaning anything or anyone who is worshipped, idolized, adored, or praised. And so concepts must be qualified. Thus, the high title of God is qualified with a divine attribute such as Almighty God or Allah God, etc. You would almost also say Adonai, etc., Elohim, Brahms, Parabrahms, etc. When one gravitates to a higher conscious level, one knows that the divine supreme absolute is at and in all places at all times omnipresent. Thus, one need not physically travel or leave the earth plane to attain heaven or to enter the etheric plane. Nimbus. A nimbus is known to classic iconography, and this is where you see the symbolisms in different religious orders that all have Gnostic origin, as a cloudy luminescence having star-like spikes at the north, south, east, and west locations of the orb, of its orb. Now, the nimbus, this is where you would see symbolically in ancient symbols or graphics in ancient Yucatan or in Egypt, where you see the high priest or those who have activated their pineal gland. They'll have like a crown, looks like floating over their head, a circle, and you'll see notches on the four corners. You will not see the bottom notch because it usually lays upon the medulla. So they'll show you, and you'll see a nimbus, that glory, and it's usually painted gold. And you see a little, whether it's decoration or whether it's an abstract opening. You see an opening here, an opening there, an opening there. If you take the nimbus and put it up, it'll be what you see in the center there.
I think I got a picture of one.
All right? Which is a symbol of the universe. All right? Which is the zodiac. And it represents, the 12 houses. The mansion is the embodiment of it. And you hear terms like, in my father's house there are many mansions, but it's actually reversed. In my father's mansion there are many houses, but the mansion is actually the universe. All right, and the houses are simply that space within this particular solar system, because it's not limited to the solar system, but the science for this particular solar system will be dealing with it from varieties that shows you the charts of the stars of the heavens in the southern and the northern hemisphere of this particular solar system. And if some of you have paid attention, if you'll, I know some of you have, and I know that many of you probably have not. If you notice that when you've been looking up into the etherics lately, that the stars seem different. And the reason why they do, because you're actually not in the same position that you was before. I'm not going to go into that right now, but that's very important, because I don't want people to ask a lot of questions in that and get distracted from where we're at. But I'm just telling you, understand that this particular solar system has moved. And you're actually on the trailing spiral of another constellation. Are we clear? Are we clear? So when you see that the stars don't seem to be in the same place, that's because they're not. All right? And there's a whole nother energy that goes with that. But the other reason why I'm talking on this area, because I already know that it will spark some questions that really can't be answered immediately, but at the same time, if you're sincere, they'll be answered for you anyway. It's because some people, even if they haven't been actually willing, are going to be, kind of hit with energies that's going to pick up other thoughts anyway. Because the species has to be moved up, whether they're willing or not. So, and I know a lot of times, and we've discussed this before, a lot of times when we're looking at things, we'll look at individual charts and forget that when you have transit into the next millennia, that the whole energy cycle changes.
Yes.
And so people are still trying to measure the God ideas that they amassed under the Piscean energy, not knowing that the Aquarian energy, it's not that it rejects that, but it's a totally different energy.
Yes.
And that there is nothing hidden. And so it makes it difficult for people, because what happens is things that they have built their lives around, if they don't understand that they will be dismantled, they may not be able to handle that. So if you're told already, you're better prepared. And my best suggestion to handle that at all is go back in your mind, be still, remove your ego, and talk to your mother. And answer why she brought you here. And start paying attention for real, not with your ego. And it might take a couple of exercises to do that. And it doesn't matter whether she's in physical form or not. It's because our concept of how this thing works here is really incorrect. And I'm not trying to present some kind of spooky idea of what it is, but she will tell you. All right? Because that's the start gate. Because even though many of them have been under the Roman rulership to create darkness on the earth, and may have been to some degree unconscious because everything has been sequentially set off, meaning that one of the reasons why the Romans changed the calendars and changed your major holidays is so that you would start adopting them as certain truths, and you would create anomalies in your own thought processes and come out of harmony with nature and not recognize when nature's talking to you. And that would be operative on what is called the will power. Meaning that because we are creatures, social creatures, and we have free will, therefore we're co-creators on the planet. Whether we admit it or not, or whatever your beliefs are, is irrelevant. We're talking about how things work. And because the masses have been promoted into dogma systems, which is why most of the masses don't take responsibility for what they do. Are we clear? Thinking that they can shed their misdeeds onto Prophet Muhammad, Jesus, and get another sacrificial lamb that they can slay and die for your sins type stuff. And sin actually means moon, if you get the point, really. And so some of these things are simply exposed to you to get you to start thinking again. I'm not trying to give you a religious lesson. Understand that I'm just giving you some of the knowledge that the priesthood have, because the priesthood have been mostly the problem, keeping the people dumb and hiding behind Allah, hiding behind Prophet Muhammad, hiding behind Jesus, hiding behind Buddha. Now, although your Eastern religions are less contaminated, they too have been contaminated by the priesthood for control purposes. And so the deal with this has gotten so bad that really Mother Nature herself is kicking in and starting to upheave, because life continues on this particular plane because the earth is a living being. And after a while, when we, by our free will, because we're signed as lords on the planet, not us praying to some lord on the outer realm. We're the lords of the plane made manifest, and we are responsible. This is why those who know these rules on the earth planet, just like those deists who, even with their contamination, after being taught by some of the brothers from the white brotherhood, and that's a degree. Understand that's not complexion, so don't get into that. And they called them Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, when they set up the order with help. They just front. They're not the real founders. That platform was set up as a balancer to stop the hundreds of years wars between the Muslims and the Christians, which was destroying the planet. And that platform was called the United States Republic Act North America. It is a political platform. And this is why you see in the preamble when they say nature's law and nature's God, they talk about Zodiac Constitution. Now, and all of them were Masons. They were deists. They were not Christians, they were Masons. And this is why Thomas Jefferson was moved to do what is called the Jefferson Bible, where he did some of the degrees to remove the mysticism about Jesus and the misrepresentation of Jesus in the Bible by the Constantinians under the guise of Christian. That's what you see as the Jefferson Bible. But understand, all of them also had Korans. All of them also had Uwasti. All of them also had the 4 Vedas. Are we clear? And so, the problem that we have, and that has continued, even though that was an effort to raise humanity to a more, what what you call moral and ethical political platform on the earth, peace on earth with goodwill of men. It was still, you still had contaminants amongst them and contaminants behind them. And I tell you this, if you really want to understand the reflections of what has taken place in the upper realm, look at the earth and its political operations as a negative dark side reflection, but specifically at northwestern Mexico under the conquest of the Spanish Inquisition for the last few hundred years. In other words, if you want to see the negative energies reflected, if you look at charts and walk back and also walk forward, center point will be here in the north. And so even though you may see destruction around the earth, understand that most of the destruction comes from the dark priesthood, from the seven hills for the Roman goddess Columbia in Washington, D.C. Because that's the military arm. Are we clear? Now, it's important for you to know of your higher self and lower self so that you can navigate these things in the physical realm, because they will be attacking you. So don't even start deluding yourself that they're not going to, or that they have not been, because they absolutely are. You know, your economic poverty, your discomforts among the masses, the destructions you see in the community, those are psychic attacks. Are we clear? And the psychic attacks have most of their effect with people who really don't know they're being attacked. And another reason why I'm sharing some of this with you is because I know that if you remove most of the mysticism from what people think they have as religion, that actually does not give them protection. It removes the dirt where they themselves already have protection, if you kind of understand it. It is not unlike symbolically when you've seen the Romans lynching Jesus, and they took his garment, they took his jalabo off, and they tried to rip it up, his robe, to share between themselves, and they couldn't rip it no matter what they did. It was futile. It means they can't enter your aura unless they can trick you into willingly opening up to them. If you understand that principle, you'll understand why when Yahshua say, ye of little faith, and in the face of Rome, don't fear Rome. And it doesn't mean that you don't have fear, but understand if you can think of your real being here and why you're really sent here, you understand that although he has power, he only has power because you give it to him. So at all times, know that there is no failure for the human soul. It is perfect even in the bosom of a fool. However, you're given or you choose certain lessons and they are so real on the border of your reality so that you can learn lessons. And this is also why when you choose to come here, the veil is usually pulled. Sometimes some children get through and the veil is shallow, which means they can still see. So sometimes they stay, sometimes they don't. But this is also when you have children that are really extremely intelligent and parents don't understand what they're dealing with, and they start suppressing them with belief systems or giving them drugs. Because the veil is not as pulled. Because the body is not necessarily the age of the being.
Right.
Because the being actually has no age. So this is where you're dealing with the monad master. So if you start understanding these things, the reason I'm telling you this is because you got to start thinking. Let me back up, because I don't want to clutter this thing. One of the liberating statements Noble Drawley said, when he said, I come for the young and the yet unborn, the old can go if they want to, he's really meaning those who adopted the Roman order. And that more children will be coming here with less of the veil pulled. Yes. There'll be more and more women that will come into their own, into their self, with comprehension, and will consciously bring champions here. When women get in that energy, Rome cannot win. forget forget all the alleged powers that they have. Because you can't beat the Stargate. The deal of it is they have to keep from a strategy position. They want to keep women into the dogma system. This is why you see churches, mosques, and synagogues, religious organizations, the predominant members are women. They don't know that they're targets. Because if they can keep them in that stagnated mind, drugged, they can rule the world. If these women are unleashed, woe unto he who claims to be a Jew. I'm just telling you the truth. You know, and for the sons, and this is not a competition thing, I'm just telling you what's going on. This is why, you know, we've been projected with the will energy that we have as sons. This is why, like, if you really, you know, if you really lack understanding, and you're with a woman that lacks understanding, don't start fighting with her. You understand? Because you ain't gonna win. You know, she can love you and destroy you, even if she don't know that she can, because of who she is. Because she is the God of good and evil. She got both gates open. Now, without telling the truth about it, this is the reason why the priesthood, rather than tell the people the real truth, they'll blame the evils on the earth, on Eve, on evolution. That's symbolic of the feminine principle. They kind of got this thing wrong. They're misrepresented. They're talking about her capacities. Do you understand? So the deal of it is, for experience, you know, she projected us. And of course she gave us our crown and projected us. And we too are her daughters made male in the womb. All eggs are female. You understand? And they dance around us. Like they'll take one and choose one, and then they dance around the egg. And they give you what is called royal jelly, royal food. And then it becomes masculine projected energy. And then they mate with chosen ones. And this is why the sons of man, or the sons of woman, is called son of God. Are we clear? If you get the whole point. And also, when you see the terms in the ancient world, you go do research into ancient Yucatan, into the Grand Canyon, and into Egypt, you'll find the culture is identical, and they don't want the masses to know that. Right. Do you understand? And then you'll see the symbols of the loincloth with the pyramid down, and the Bible they call it a great leaf over Adam's groin, which means controlling your lower chakras in order to activate the stomach, intestinal area, and then coming up to the heart chakra. But if you're preoccupied with the lower chakras, it's not that it's negative. It's not that it's negative. You're grounded into the physical, carnal realm and not comprehending, not necessarily that you can't, that your responsibility for using the Stargate for fun, and this would be called gratifying carnal desires. Whatever the energy is of the gate is no different than the alchemical that you put in, and then you bring these forms through. This is where sicknesses, imbalanced humans come from, and stuff like that. But like a high priest or a true doctor can look at the human, look through their chart, and see the salts and the phosphates that are missing and give them the proper foods. That's the origin of medicine. Because you deal with salts and phosphates. And then you deal with energy compilation of the sons who mate with another woman's daughter. Remember, the reason why a woman is called widow is because if a woman mates with her son, she's only mating with another woman's son. Therefore, she has no husband. Are we clear? And thus she's referred to as widow, and we are referred to as widow's son. All right, so this is, again, where you see the symbol in all ancient temples and all ancient synagogues and all ancient, what you call houses of learning, they would always have feminine names. If you talk about lands and nativity, nations, that's the gathered bodies of mothers' children, they would call it be nations. Nativity, nation, nationality, etc. Inheritances, it comes to the female. You know, if they want to trace any human on the planet, and it doesn't matter who they are. You know, for the masses, they were talking about who your daddy is and all that stuff. In real science, they want to trace it through women and women alone. Because the genetic code is predominantly in her. Because she's the stargate. Now, it is the misuse of that information that has caused much of the misery on the planet. And of course, for control purposes, they will compete the male and the female against the sons against their own mother, so that the priesthood can rule, making them thinking that because we got a couple of muscles and stuff, that we're stronger and type stuff. You know, you start messing with her and get her upset, see if you win. You know what I mean? What I'm just saying. No, really, you know, but that's not an ego thing. It's really, we need to start understanding ourselves. We need to know the higher self, the lower self. But above that, we need to know that the priesthood has tampered with humanity. And they have not been called to the table on that. And, you know, you can't just keep giving people different philosophies and exposing different things without telling them on the priesthood, because as long as the priesthood have control, humanity is on a path of death. And they have become so corrupt, some of them want to tell the truth, but if they do, someone might get lynched. And so they don't tell the truth. And they're always looking for somebody else to tell the truth. And to signify them when somebody does, they start telling them how they should tell the truth. Or how much of it they should tell. All of this stuff. Because the truth of the matter is, when the truth is known, all of these institutions will pretty much collapse. And because so many people have built their lives around these institutions, they don't know that there's anything else. And so even though the institutions are corrupted, they're afraid for them to collapse because they don't know that there's another comfort blanket. You know, this is again why in Mark and Yahshua, you know, the people, when Yahshua came, you know, amongst us and everything, you know, we're of Moabite blood, he's of Moabite blood. But our people didn't want to be Moabite. They want to be Roman. They want to follow after Roman. So as you know, when he says, you know, I came amongst my own, they received me not. And then he said to him, you know, well, you split, man. You know, how are we supposed to know God and everything, you know, if you go away? He said, I go to my Father, and you will see me no more. However, a comforter will be sent unto you. He just told you of another prophet. But how many people take that book and tell you something different, saying that Jesus comes back, when he himself told you? No, you ain't. But the energy is one. But the deal of it is, how do you understand what you're dealing with? And how do you see that without getting caught up in the carnal physical beings? Because everyone that's here on the plane, we got issues. Very few of us ain't got issues. You know, so we're here on a learning curve. However, truth is that many of them are more advanced than others and know it. But in order to fit, they have to kind of jump in the mud. And then be careful jumping in the mud so you don't go backwards. If you get the point. And then trying to find that level or the area, how can you communicate and help develop them without being drawn in, without actually not seeming so far in the left field that they don't take you serious. Or that those who do know come tag you to get you out of the way, because the vampires recognize light. And that has been constant. All right. Point that I'm making is, the energy that you're in now, and the earth has been moved further in the Futon belt. We'll get that in the future. For those of you who want to do a little research, go ahead and do it. But if you want to proof of what I just said to you, look up in the sky and start looking at the star patterns, and you ain't going to see the same star patterns. Don't worry about it, but you've been moved. All right? Now, and so it's necessary to take the priesthood down. So that's going to be reflected on multiple levels, all across the planet. The reason I'm telling you this, because it ain't BS. And you don't have cycle. Now you can call it time, but we measure time by cycles. So we look at things different. So we have different energies. We don't value things the same way that you might on this part, right? So you're going to have mothers bring sons in. So don't get confused because they're masculine forms. Don't get that confused. All right. Some of them decided to come back just because they want to help, not because they needed the lesson. And there's a lot of them here this time. I'm just telling you that bluntly. You know, so I'm saying that for you to be confident, to be courageous. Because Rome is ramping up their attacks. All right? And your energy, your will to know, and I say that like that, will to know, opens the door to knowing. Are we clear? Although you already know. And what it is, they will be cleansers, meaning they come here to cleanse you and to stop all obstructions. So a lot of times, some things that they will do will not seem immediately in your interest, but they actually will be. So observe things, but don't be too judgmental, because you're going to have to learn discernment between enemies and friends, because all that whole platform has been corrupted. All right? So, and remove your own personal ego out of the equation while looking at these things. And I think for some of you, according to where the energy is that's on you, know what I'm talking about already. You know, but those who may not. So when you feel these changes, know what they are, and don't think that they're not known by people. So you're not alone. And don't think that you are. All right? But also don't think that the dark priesthood haven't ramped up their game. All right? Because they absolutely have. Anyway. So the nimbus, when displayed in the more geometrically defined symbol of circle icon, is predominantly shown with 4 openings or gates, located at the north, south, east, and west points of the circle, or at terminal points of a cross forming 4 quarters parts within the nimbus circle. Now keep in mind, those who know these things will be getting the Gnostic wisdom that goes with this information. All of their secret societies, although they were coded, they will be given this in allegorical stories and sign symbols and allegorical stories, and will tell you this devil knowledge to keep you away from it. All right? That's why they tell you that, to keep you away from it, when they really should be telling you of your higher self and your lower self. If you would find your God, you will find him within, you will find her within. You find your devil, you find her and him within. All right? It is your responsibility to start working on yourself to cleanse. Are we clear? And you will cleanse with mostly knowledge. That's what the baptism really is. The water symbol is just symbolic. And the water just simply, it symbolizes when the Aquarian energy comes in, the water bearer to wash it. Because you've been in the darkness of the Piscean age. And the priesthood who have ruled in the Piscean age have gone dirty. Thoroughly dirty. They're not even cleansable. They're not reformable. They're actually the dark. Are we clear? Yeah. That's not putting anybody's, what they think they got religion is down. It's just telling you what's happening to the planet. And you are going to have to take responsibility to help clean this mess up. Plus, if you pay attention, close attention to the energy that Earth is putting out, she's not tolerating what we've been pretending to be mistakes. men don't make mistakes. They make mischoice judgments and call them mistakes when they don't get the cookies they want. So, do you understand? You know, they pretend that they're not demigods. But you were assigned on this earth plane as lords and stewards of the planet Earth.
Islam.
We just been preoccupying ourselves with the lower selves, boarding a couple of darkies, dark side forms, doing astral traveling, coming back, the body ain't contained just with us. And then we've been bringing babies here through the stargates for carnal purposes only, bringing sicknesses and dark energies have been coming in. And nobody wants to take responsibility. And that's the truth, meaning that we are makers of our own condition. And we're going to have to start looking at that and taking responsibility. But we got buried into belief systems which stops us from using our divine mind. And we think that religion or the God must be found. No, the God must be cleansed. And we've got to take your shades off. There ain't nowhere to go and eat. Somewhere out there is in you. All right? But remember, with the others, many who have been here to help, they cannot interfere. These are the rules. They cannot interfere. Meaning they can watch you, they can do things to influence, but they cannot interfere. You know, but this stuff has gotten so bad that when about 92, they shifted the earth about 3 degrees north, off the north node. And this is why you've seen later them having to recalibrate all the airports. Because the electrical grid has changed, but that was to put a check on the dark priesthood. You know, I'm just telling you that so you'll know these things that if y'all look back in the last 10, 20 years in your experiences and you see certain things that took place, telling you what's happened. You know, but outside of that, they don't interfere. However, they've been protecting us, you know, and they've also been cleansing. Now, the deal of it is, to cut through the chase, is your responsibility to stop playing fakery like you don't understand this stuff. Or like we've got to tell you every detail like you don't know. You know, all we're doing is agitating you, get you to think again, but telling you to shed the belief system that the priesthood have put on you. And once you do that, the truth is already there. All we really tell you is sweep the floor. Sweep the floor and you find the jewels that were there all the time. You know, wash your drawers. Don't throw them away. And you'll discover the golden threads that you had all the time. That's all I'm saying. You know what I mean? So, the symbolics. And so when you see, like, as an example, when the prophet Nudrali came in 1913, he says that he has the secret history of Jesus. Because what he's doing, he's telling you the truth. Because he's going to take you from that degree to the Yahshua degree, to the bishopric, and he's always so said to you, don't get rid of your Bibles because I'm going to use that Bible to condemn this government. All right? Once you understand this, you're going to be taken to some other degrees. But because logically, whenever a prophet makes a move, Rome makes a counter move. And they usually double down. Because it takes double lies to cover up a little bit of light. In other words, the light of truth is potent. And so they have to tell multiple lies in order to cover it up. However, so I already know you know these dynamics because you've been experiencing it lately. Certain things have been said to you over the years to agitate you to think. Its real design was to pull out the roaches or the trolls from amongst you and from others. Are we clear? Because many of them were trusted. All right? but that's actually a cleansing that's going to take place. And it's going to be some of the most common people that you may call common people that have no knowledge of this stuff whatsoever, who will overnight be hit with an energy and become what you might call champions that pull the sword out the rock type thing. Many of them will be young. If some of these youth start talking to you, pay attention to them. Don't get caught up in their age. All right? Elders know this, and many of them that don't speak it is only because they're too contaminated. Therefore, young will be chosen to present. All right? That's the only reason why. It's not that the elders can't. They can come if they want to, but they're going to have to render unto Caesar what is Caesar. They're going to give all the cookies back, the free sandwiches and everything else. They're going to engage them in the comfortable jobs and all this stuff. And it doesn't matter because they're going to be taken anyway. And then Rome's platform is being dismantled, so they ain't going to be able to give them no more free cookies anyway. Meanwhile, like I said before, I'm saying I'm only agitating you. So I'm sharing this for the purpose of agitating you because I already know this stuff. But I also know those who've been less willing to think that the priesthood on our side will be going after them to try to shut them back down, or put them back in the closet in the darkness. Enlightenment refers to the means or act of enlightenment. In relationship to the ancient Moabite Moorish philosophies, enlightenment infers the maxims of exercising the five senses. Are we clear? To maximize understanding and the inherent potential to positive cultural development. The harmonious activation of the five senses stimulates the activation of the sixth sense or third eye. The opening of the third eye stimulates insight, quote unquote, free thinking, and intelligent questioning of modern alterations of ancient and traditional doctrines, beliefs, and values. This is done not for condemnation, but for rational and reasoning examination. Modern schools of ecclesiastical instructions seem not to be solution-oriented, nor do they courageously or clearly address the human drama, nature, and condition. Enlightenment is analogous toward individualism and emphasizes the idea of universal human progress. Enlightenment is the empirical method of science and the free use of reason. Unfortunately, many modern schools of thought work absolutely to the contrary of universal human progress and mental spiritual mastery. This has been especially prevalent in caste-oriented social orders such as the forced servitude systems as perpetrated by inquisitionists and their descendants who have colonized and conquered the natural peoples of the Western Hemisphere. This negated condition is among many reasons why the ancient Moabite Moorish sciences and philosophies are a most valuable freedom tool for the fallen and defeated Moors of North America who commonly and blindly cling to the mental slave brands such as Negro, Black, Colored, African, Afro-American, West Indian, Latino, etc. However, these ancient Moabite Moorish truths are universal in nature. There are many ways by which one may encounter enlightenment. One may be enlightened by one's experiences or insights. Someone may inspire one to relook into oneself by way of their mere presence or conversation. One may graduate or gravitate to enlightenment by way of telepathy, akasa, or by way of the oral or literary works, glyphs, and records descended down from the ancient Lemurian, Moabite, Moorish philosophies. and sciences. Pardon me. Enlightenment may be obtained directly from the supra-conscious mind. I repeat, enlightenment may be obtained directly from the supra-conscious mind, or received through or veiled under disciplines such as yoga, or under other names or nations. By whatever means or method one is enlightened, know that when one begins to see, quote unquote, deeper and higher, quote unquote, one has only met one's own genii, past, present, and future culture, and learning of ascending nature of the self. And of this we add, there is nothing new under the sun. And that truth, knowledge, wisdom, understanding, and overstanding of the history and evolution of woman and man cannot be owned by anyone. Know that divine truth belongs to all, and that none may be left out. Love is the master key to and for deciphering the lessons for maximum benefit, lessons of life. The great experimental, sensational, and sometimes trying lessons of life, quote unquote, which are placed before every individual manifest atom, atman, expression, or divine spark unit of the human family, are part of the inherited nature, quote unquote, and tempering involved in and of Eve or evolution. The incarnate being, upon manifestation on the terrene, earth, or mundane plane, grows to recognize the opportunities for, of, and to bountiful expressions and experience through the magnificent, though transient, biogenetic form. This biological, electrical, and chemical body tool is perfected for I, spirit, or small atom, atman, monad expression of the greater light. The same biogenic tool is an animated house or dwelling place for the monad atman on the plane of things made manifest. A body beautiful and magnificent, a manifest of complex progressions and possibilities, and of variable ascendant and descendable contradictions. Without doubt, it is the business of the wiser one to seek to know that with which we are working and have adjoined unto the true self. Consider the old expression, I am me, myself. Deific life. Deific life refers to the conscious acts and ways of life made on higher moral and ethical principles by one who is aware of the state of ascending the ladder to deific life, ascension or attainment. It is a natural part. Of being on the plane of things made manifest. It goes with the territory and is therefore as natural to all. Just as the fruits of a tree may not ripen at the same time, so the varied beings do ascend in accord with their developmental potential. And what we call time, a measure of duration, whether past, present, or future, is the other determinant. Thus, ascension or attainment is the birthright of every woman, man, and child, and cannot be bought or sold. However, the ancient Moabite Moorish philosophies and high cultural cosmology sciences have been shared over the ages to assist the divine beings manifested in human flesh to navigate more smoothly onward in the journey. And thus the purpose and assignment allotted each monad atman is less hindered by the murky ethers of the flesh, or what some may perceive as spiritual blindness. No one be assured that beings need not become dull, inverted, and or stagnated by possessing knowledge of and applying the revelations of the realities of life. To the contrary, one should actually become more vibrant, courageous, and animated. Temperance is necessary to, quote-unquote, travel the experience. Sensations and learning along, on, and in the terrasphere school of the material plane. So Earth is really the terrasphere school of the material plane. Do not separate from the world, separate from the ignorance which plunges one into the miseries of lacking a knowledge of self. Assist in the uplifting of fallen humanity by way of love, truth, and mutual understanding. All that is said or done has been and is imprinted upon nature's supersensitive Akashic record. Creed and karma. The great ancient philosophies and sciences were formulated and taught among the civilized to assist in the self-governing of those beings transiting on the earth plane. The encompassing truths as to why those truths have been held back for a given time from those to whom forced servitude, slavery, connotatively, was allotted, is addressed in another and other lessons. Nevertheless, issues of karmic debt or retribution justice were accrued by the ancient ones, our ancient mothers and fathers, and are being worked out, solved by their fallen direct descendants, Moors of the past and present eras. We, our foremothers and our forefathers, are one. The karmic debt and retribution justice has spawned much of the spiritual, socially negative and retarding conditions now giving tribulation on earth societies. By way of the law of compensation, some of these compensatory issues are being put to resolution regardless of the wills or, wills or desires of any beings. Take note that many heretofore misaddressed social and spiritual issues are being moved to the forefront of the consciousness of the people, many of which we are now being healed and remedied. The word karma is derived from the old Lemurian, Moabite, Hittite, Sanskrit word kri. Kri means to do and to act. The word kri suggests esoterically what one sees done is the effect of an action. Thus, kri may reflect what is done as well as what is not done. The more refined understanding and view of this is what is known as cause and effect. The key point of this lesson, the Holy of Holies, is therefore an appropriate lesson, among others, to aid and assist the fallen sons and daughters of the Asiatic Moabite and Moorish nation of northwestern Mexico, Africa, America. And the fallen and disgraced Moors were branded Negro, black, colored, Ethiopian, etc. And this must be corrected. Thus, this also applies to and connects to the greater whole of the human family. The Holy of Holies is presented to the once lost Moors because we need it most. Karma is sometimes discerned as a punishment. The truth is that karma is not so much a punishment as some may perceive it to be. Karma is simply just what it is, a fixed and unchanging law of the universe or cosmos. What one does and what one does not do have and or produce effect relative to cause and effect. Be cognitive of the fact that we possess free will and are endowed by nature with the power to create and the power to destroy. Thoughts are real, and effects of thoughts are not left to mere casual happenings. Thoughts bring about a desired thing or effect. While there may appear to be contradiction in this statement, it is in fact real and clear when one analyzes it without catering to selfishness and or unbridled emotions. So when you see what's taking place now, and it will be reflected in the West because the rulership of Rome is executed from the Western throne. Are we clear? But the execution is simply a carrying out of a bull of the high dark priesthood, which means that the operators in the West are simply what you would call Roman soldiers. They don't make the rules, they carry the rule out. Are we clear? Not unlike the tentacles to an octopus. get the point. This is also why many of the Manchurian Masons and Manchurian assassins have been approaching the re-establishment of this ancient Silk Road from Asia Major, Asia Minor, or Asia Sol. Asia Sol is what people today call Tamari or Africa. That's South Asia. And so the ancient Silk Road that not only went there, but also goes underwater in tunnels actually to the north that are actually ancient. That the priesthood know always exists. The masters have not known that. So they think that we've only traveled by water. Not only by devans, or what you call ships in the air, also under the ground. You know, so what has occurred in truth is that many of the Roman operators in the contemporary world digging for gold have ran into some of our ancient tunnels. And because they have been under control of the empires since, particularly since the Dutch masters took over Manhattan. You know, they've been pretty much using the tunnels to negate nations on the world. And so by the masses not knowing the real history and geography on the planet, and also of themselves, the Romans have been able to give the air of mystery superiority, because they've been not only burying ancient technology, they've been hiding ancient technology after they attacked the libraries in Luxor, in Alexandria. And as an interim for you for thought, this is why they took a separation of land of Virgin and of Mary's land. So you call it Maryland and Virginia. All right, and they made a little seat for Alexander the Great. It's called Alexandria, Virginia. And then they put an obelisk there as a symbol for Washington. And that layout, Chief Justice Ben Bey, you know, did most of the metrology. And the metrology is that it's laid out according to the stars. And so if you look at Washington from the sky, it's totally astrological. If you look at, say, where the Supreme Court sits, it would be like a standing bird. Aquila. All right, so Aquila is the bird we allow Rome to use as Rome has taken over the empire. That's why all persons in government must be Masons and wear the Moorish fez in their secret societies. However, they're dirty, if you understand. Now, they have betrayed all principle. And the ones that were brought here into government have an oath that they would maintain moral and ethical rule and law. But you already know, we don't have to tell you about the coup d'etat of 1861 and the Act of Congress 1871. You already know that we've been over that redundantly. However, those operations have come to a head because what you have is Manchurians, which we've told you multiple times, that have sent out roughly a little over 6.5 million perfected assassins to counter Roman operations on the Earth planet. All right, so it's sort of like you come to an apex point where they can no longer continue hiding what's really going on. And so amongst the dark priesthood, you have a civil war going on with them. And so they're, again, some of them know that it's over. You know, and we're not talking about just politically, because you got to remember the transfer takes place in the galaxy first, in what you call an etheric plane, and then it manifests in the physical plane. Now, those who understand this know that they've already lost, but the Romans are, you can say, jealous, angry, and so they want to try to take as many people down with them as they can. Meaning, do you understand? this is another reason why we wanted to do constitutional man, which we could get into and get into the chemical makeup of man. But I think to try to do that without having what you call refined, classes would leave people too blind. But most of you understand that. So you know the 12 salts. And then we have enough people like Brother Davis here, as you understand, like he's a Moorish scientist of the health. And he would be really in harmony with Imhotep, if you get the point. And understand, let's talk with no Europeans. This ancient science. But true religion includes that. And a lot of people think that it does not, or like these different disciplines have nothing to do with Islam. Islam is science of earth. We're not talking about the creed where people just make the Hajj and say praise Allah. We're not talking about that. It's not putting anyone down, but it's science of the planet, of all aspects of life, of the building blocks of life. Even when you see YHWH, what you call Yahweh, that actually is the 4 elements with subcategories that are expanded, that are not given to the masses. So it's earth, air, wind, earth, air, water, and fire. And then you have subcategories in metals, energies, metal tables. Then you have subcategories of subcategories. You have chemical tables that are called alchemy. All of that's part of religion, and it's also medicine. And it also involves, on an aggregate surface, when the masses are given what the masses get out of religion, you're actually given agricultural science codified. So agriculture of the plant life, the earth growth patterns, and how that is to be used by you, like it's represented in the book of Deuteronomy, where it tells you don't eat pig, and it tells you that every herb-bearing tree is food for you. So when you understand these things, that's only lightweight. You get deeper, but that's basic for the average person, really for children. All right, but when you become an adult, you put your childish things away and you actually get into the science. So true religion requires real study. It's not based on emotional beliefs, it's based on actual knowledge. And the real deal is that the priesthood put the people in darkness, and have been giving them dogma. And it's just that things have gotten so bad where nature herself is going to start killing you off if you don't straighten up. This is where it says the earth will start removing those who are defiling her. And this is where Dwali reminded us of our responsibility to self, and have told us that we must remove the corruption of this Negro, black, and colored thing, to save the earth from earthquakes and diseases and things like this. So while certain things are being produced by Rome for the purpose of political control, a lot of it is actually earth responding to cleansing. So you're going to have to get connected with yourself so that you can tell the difference and not just assume certain things, so that you can become more and more harmonic with nature to protect yourself, because that's really your shield. And then you can decide whether you want to leave here or not, because you leave when you really want to. You know what I mean? And it is better, particularly at this time, for you to do as much as you can to help humanity ascend. And the greatest way to help humanity ascend is remove the BS of the priesthood, because they have been the major blocking gate, has been the priesthood themselves. And again, like I said, that's not condemning people's beliefs, or there are different versions of what they think they have as religion, because the masses haven't been given religion, the priesthood have been playing it, and they need to be told them. There's another reason why I chose chapter 8 when I came in, to give you what they know, what they don't want the masses to know, is that the priesthood is dead, because they're the problem. But anyway, Be cognizant of the fact that we possess free will and are endowed by nature with the power to create and the power to destroy. Thoughts are real, and the effects of thought, quote unquote, are not left to mere casual happenings. Thoughts bring about a desired thing or effect. While there may appear to be contradiction in this statement, it is in fact real and clear when one analyzes it without catering to selfishness and or unbridled emotions. When one understands this lesson, one will know why the prophet Yahushua, Jesus, said, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Likewise, do not do unto others that which you would not want done to self. Divine law is impartial. And so all of these, because that's based in what you call maxim, of the rule of cause and effect, but it's also called retribution justice. And so when you begin to learn the real history of yourself, you'll learn that we did very great things and we did all terrible things. And that we must own up to both of them and clean them up. But you can't clean up what you've been blinding yourself to. You know, and it's not that we don't know these things, we've been blinding ourselves to it. And so many of us have hiding behind what we've been calling religion, not to take responsibility for what we've created, including the Roman. On the ever-advancing and spiral cycle wheels. As all other beings made manifest, angels are no more than advanced monad Atman entities who have evolved to higher spiritual levels on the evolutionary scale upon which we all. Hold on. We'll go down back to this. Angel. As it has always been, angels manifested in human flesh have duties, missions, and assignments. Are we clear? And are, as we, solving problems presented. Pardon me. All this dice again. On the ever-advancing and spiraling cycle wheels. So things actually operate in this universe. You know how like you look at things in circles? But it's really spirals. So everything is structured in spirals. And the earth, as an example, does not revolve around the sun. It follows the sun in a spiraling effect with the rest of the planets as the sun moves through the universe. And when the sun goes through denser form, or particularly we're going into the photon belt now, and you get more resistance. This is why you've seen the sun being white lately at different times and not yellow. That means there's more resistance. But understand that, again, and I'll remind you so that you all can get more in touch with yourselves. Look up in the sky and you'll notice that the stars are different. The patterns aren't there. So don't let it alarm you. Just know that the earth has been moved. So keep that in mind for yourself. Now, I'm not going to try to prove that to you. Stay, look in the sky, look for yourself. All right? Now, higher planes of life. The focus in this assignment is to help in the greater work of assisting to raise, quote unquote, fallen humanity to the higher planes of life, quote unquote. The higher planes of life are in reference to a consciousness connection to the ever-present high vortex ethereal energy centers of life force. Those vortexes may be referred to as energy wheels. And this is a revelation of and demystification of the allegorical story and mystery of Ezekiel's wheels. We will deal more in depth with the wheels in the context of another lesson. Every divine being manifested in human flesh has hundreds of these energy wheels located at different parts of the body. However, the greater focus for an introductory study and understanding is directed to the 7 major vortex energy wheels located from the base of the spine to the crown of the head. Know thyself. Use the tools allotted to all who come. Hold consciousness to the spiritual and physical mix and or function. Now let us examine a functional part of the self. The 5 senses plus. Senses from Old Moabite Moorish Latin sentir, I, sensus, means which I to feel. Feeling is one of the basic physical senses of which the skin contains the chief and organs of which the sensations of touch and temperature are characteristic. Feeling is also attributed to generalized bodily awareness, consciousness, impression, recognition, and sensation. The following are the 5 senses generally associated with the faculty of receiving mental impressions by or through the action of an outside stimuli, such as heat, light, sound, vibration, etc., upon certain extensions and or organs of the body. Thus, we also cognate degrees of perception or consciousness resulting from outside stimulation or stimuli. On the ever-advancing and spiral cycle wheels, all other beings are made manifest. Angels are no more than advanced monad Atman entities who have evolved to higher spiritual levels on the evolutionary scale upon which we all ride. And that's the part that's not in there because I was actually doing some editing there. And you will ascend much higher and greater. And some of you will ascend higher than they. This is some of the ones. The other problem that we have is that some of them are here, and instead of really helping, they become feeders. They're advanced, but instead of helping, they become feeders. Are we clear? So the concept that people have that when people are, or some of the beings here are angels, that they're all necessarily good, your concepts are wrong. They come in degrees just like they do here. They're just on a higher vibratory level. But they got vampire strength. All right? That's how it works. Go ahead.
It's that reminds me of the, we were binge watching Travelers.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Of that Netflix Travelers. Yeah, but
that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking because I was watching it with you and I wasn't really looking at it from that perspective. I think because they're telling it.
Yes.
And that's because the priesthood is being dismantled. And then some of them are trying to get on the right side of history. Because a few of them were trying to leave and they were stopped. Because Earth is a quarantine, you know that, right? Y'all feel it if you didn't know it. But the quarantine is being lifted. But there's some sense to help you all, us. But and you have amongst them because their whole platform is being laid bare. Because in Aquarian light there are no shadows, so it doesn't matter what they do politically. It can't be hidden because the energy disallows it. And this is where a lot of times when we're talking, when you deal with individual charts, and you simply say, "I don't even get into that." Not that I don't, because I'm really dealing on a totally different other plane. And I'm kind of ahead of the game.
Yes.
And it's sort of like, not that people are wrong, they're busy doing what they thought was real, but that was real when the Piscean lords were there. But they've been moved out the way. And so whatever legislation they do is moot. It doesn't knock them, but they're moved out the way. And it is no different than where you look at these lights and you see these lights here, and then if you look amongst yourself, look at the chairs, see the different angles where they cast the shadows?
Yes.
In the Aquarian light, the atmosphere is the light. It casts no shadows. You can't hide in Aquarian light. You know, and so people need to really understand that the politics of dogma, that the priesthood have control for these many millennia, it can't happen now. Come on with it.
I try not to, right?
No, go ahead, do it, because it's helpful. I need it.
Okay, indeed, Islam.
Islam.
So when you were speaking about the monad, right?
Yeah.
And we're speaking about the mothers actually bringing in the warriors. The good news about you saying that is there's a full moon coming, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be on the 1st of January, 9:23 p.m. At that time, when the moon is at about 11 degrees, 37 minutes in Cancer, just opposite of the sun in Capricorn, it's going to be a kite being formed by the planets, as well as a grand water trine between the moon in Cancer. Scorpio has Jupiter and Mars, and you got Neptune at home in Pisces. So that's all feminine energy. Earth and water is all feminine energy. So what's really about to happen, whether you like it or not, respectfully saying, is mother's going to wake up. There's the force to make changes is about to happen.
Like Rob said.
Islam.
Yeah. Now, hold on. Meanwhile, the priesthood will be celebrating January the 1st.
Right.
Why?
Because
January the 1st, 1492, they burnt the Red House.
Okay.
And from that point, they set up the platform for administrating the conquered peoples and lands. When they know, let's look at this.
Okay.
Think. The priesthood, after they got rid of Yahshua, had what they call the Nicene Council 325 years after they assassinated Yahshua. And they chose for themselves to change his name to hide the history that he's Moabite. And we already know Michelangelo's nephew and all this stuff that they use to create the image. All right. Now, look at the Nimbus wheel. Where does Aries sit?
In the east.
Go point.
Oh, okay.
Now you understand the Arian heresy? The Arian heresy that the priesthood had after they murdered the Nazarene and made up the Constantinian Creed and used his name as a front. It's called the Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed, disguised as Christianity, that they've been running the planet with. Go ahead. It is my...
Okay, so even though Aries is analogy to the body is the head, it does look like the reproductive system to mother.
Yes.
So in the Arian heresy, that's another degree or level of suppressing mother.
All right, now, so let's talk. Esther.
Yes.
Easter. Ishtar. All set. Isis. All one and the same. Venus.
Yes.
And so the priesthood was debating what they call Arian heresy. And all heirs were called heretics. That's the Spanish Inquisition.
Right.
That's why they have the Mummers Parade January 1 in Philadelphia. And they altered the calendars to dismiss that the star is in the east, Eastern Star.
Yes.
Third moon, third month, 21st day, 33 degrees, Jesus. Easter,
Yeah.
age 33, they think they kill him? Oh, but you're in a new era time now.
Yes.
And all men now must proclaim their free national name to be recognized by the nations of the earth. See it?
Islam.
Welcome to the new year later on.
Yes.
You see?
Yes.
So now when the people begin to understand how to read the heavens themselves, which I respect you and I'm really appreciating you for aiding them to read the hieroglyphs, the sun glyphs, which is the language of the stars. You see?
Yes.
Which is their religion with their ancient mothers and fathers.
Yes.
Book of Malachi, how many chapters?
I'm saying, all right, shit.
4.
Four.
4 gates.
Right. I know, y'all quote, right?
So it closes out with the sun of righteousness arises with healing in his wings, doesn't it?
Yes.
Well, it seems like Mary, the earth, brought them, didn't she?
Yes.
Rome thought they got rid of them, didn't they?
But they can't.
Exactly.
Like never, though.
That's the point. So you're in the Aquarian age now.
Yes.
Not only that, the placement is in many bodies. They can't murder them off this time. So, you can't murder their way out of this 10-day.
No.
Now, all right. Those who've been paid off by Rome to keep this nigger stuff going on, they look like me and you.
Yes.
That's pretending to love their people.
Right.
When Rome falls, it pulls them off because they're swinging around on his apron strings and become invisible to the world, aren't they?
Yes.
So they must be removed. And that's where the youth come in with their eyes wide open. And then we going after the dragon's tail. All right?
Yes.
Because there is no darkness when Aquarius comes. All right. Thank you very much. Give me brother Mike.
Oh, sorry.
No, just
No, what's your mic?
Just only footnote is that prior to everything brother just said, Sagittarius, which it's only every 30 years.
Yes. Every 29 and a half.
And that
Does the same.
has to do with the government.
Well, actually,
Government straight.
right now, yes, in the tropic, it appears that Saturn is transiting Capricorn, but it's actually at about 7 degrees
I like that a little because I want the people to learn. I want you all to exchange. I want you all to exchange because I want the people to learn.
Coming in.
Start again.
This order it's all being put in order. See, as Sagittarius, it only does it like what's about 30 years for it to go around in cycle. So as it comes in, and it's like you said, they can't run, they can't hide there.
No, they can't.
It's all everything that's going and is happening is saying that you can't run, you can't hide because order will come.
Yes.
That's the point that's the only point I was making.
Yes, no,
Well,
and
okay.
I,
I actually agree. Not to cut you with somebody, I do actually agree because
You can't argue.
what's happening right now with where Saturn is transiting Sagittarius, and I'm saying that sidereal base, which is where the constellation.
And sidereal means real measurement by the stars as opposed to the alterated calendars for convenience sake.
Yes.
So the scientists use the actual cycles for true measurement.
Yes.
See that
go ahead.
that's one of the orders that has to do with what they did at 325, because that is one. Constantine said one of the most pressing issues was the Aryan issue, because that's why they pushed it back in January 1st. First day, was at the gate that you pointed out.
Yes.
That's when our time started. But they did juristically.
Nature.
True. Juristically. They
Yeah.
take it away from that. Juristically.
Yes.
Jur, risk, the law, spoke jurisdiction, speak the law. This is where they took it from us.
And so there's fiat.
And they split.
There's fiat.
Right.
The beginning of the fiat.
They
It
split.
is by false authority that they claim, and then they take the false authority. It becomes the cloud.
Right.
that covers the truth.
Right. There you go.
And therefore the heirs are buried in appearance in the whole. And then the God said, where is he?
Yeah.
Where is he with the coat of many colors?
See, they split our ancient signs right there.
Go ahead.
Because when Constantine broke the wheel down into the equal parts of the 12 signs, took all the divine feminine principle out of the sign. He took all the divine feminine principle out of it, took Ophiuchus, which comes between Scorpius and Sagittarius, right?
Yes.
Which was the guardian divine feminine principle.
And then at the center of the wheel, you got Newt. You got the mother.
Right.
13.
That's the 13.
Okay.
13 cycles of the moon. You know what I'm saying? This is our ancient signs. But see, what they did was they split the signs because Ptolemy, because he couldn't do the ancient calculations, didn't realize and understand.
Yes, he did.
Well, yeah, okay. All right. Yeah, I'm not going to be here. It might be nice. Yeah. He knew that with the progression of the planets, that every year it went up 2 degrees.
Yes.
Because now that's why the astronomer told the astrologer that he's full of crap.
Yeah.
Because exactly what he said earlier. When we look to the sky and we say, oh, it's in, no, it's not. It's in Capricornus. You know what I mean? It's not where it actually is. Mm-hmm. So, like, we grew up thinking, like, say, for instance, because we don't know, all my life believing I was a Taurus. But under true zodiac signs, I was Aries. Can you understand how
when you
your
make
whole big, how that throw you out? Because everything that you've been being taught, everything that we've been thinking, you know what I mean, is like on the Taurus. And this is what I am. This is where I conduct myself. This is where I conduct my affairs.
Yes.
But that's not who we are. That's not who you are. So those energies, as you know, like
now,
even to find a mate, you know,
interjection.
Yeah, sure.
You want? No, Drawley says, study yourselves, be yourself.
Yes.
Right? Right. And he says, how do masterminds trace themselves? Question. How do masterminds trace themselves? By the wheel. By Ezekiel's wheel. When in doubt, you go to the math.
Yes.
Go back to church.
Yes.
You make no assumption.
At all.
Then what did you do? What did you just identify? He said, go back. Go back to the state of mind of your ancient mothers and fathers.
That's what I was saying. Like, okay, so that we, because I remember, bro, when you were saying, you know, and great seal Moors don't do the we's and them's and days and stuff. So it's the same thing with the mathematics. So it's not that the tropic astrology is wrong. It just has 23.5 degrees added to it based on the tilt of the earth. So the tropic astrology is more like me, you, and Brother Taj, or any other son here. We have nipples but feed nothing. Whereas the Vedic astrology is more motherly, more accurate.
Right, exactly.
You know, so that's
not just that.
It's also looking at astrology from the earth looking out.
Yeah, and don't.
See, we can actually do it from out.
When you are where you are when you do that. But this is what I'm saying to you. This is back to what Gabriel said earlier. And I think a lot of people need to pay attention to this. All right, in comfort, you know, we do casuality.
Yes.
All right, so in casuality of living, we abbreviate.
Yes.
So I say this to you in what you said, and I'm just reminding everyone to keep this in mind. What did you say that's very vital and is often overlooked because we get casual? Sidereal.
Yes. Sidereal. Yes.
Measurement.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. You know why I'm talking.
Yes.
And so over a period of time, that's when we get out of sequence. In the way we're looking at it.
Yes. Yes.
Not that it's out of sequence.
Right. It's our perspective.
Perceptions.
Yes.
And therefore, we need the people to rise to the degree and start teaching again the truth of the science.
Oh, okay, so can I segue and say this then? I am still assisting.
Yeah, but go ahead.
And that's what we've kind of been planning. And actually Mother Ari has been kind of on my back about it, but that's what Mother does.
Yeah.
And indeed. But the astrology courses is really important for the sheer fact that it'll liberate the people.
The religious courses.
Yes, period.
Relieve you with your ancient mothers and fathers.
It's deep that you said. It's deep that you said the sister did it because that's who did it.
Yes.
You know, when they went through ancient Rome and killed all the symbols. They and during that period of time, I mean, you know, as soon as you hear the word ancient, you know they talking about your stuff.
Yes.
You know,
And keep in mind the ancient civil temples.
Listen to this confusion.
Right.
Shaman, she-man.
Uh-huh.
Because the brother started putting on a dress and trying to do what she did.
Got you.
Because
This where you see that in Eastern countries where you see the brothers wearing dresses, that's what it symbolizes. Yes.
I mean, I'll give the floor on this one, so that we can continue.
Sorry, the lesson. But I do know that the reason that you're even bringing this up is because in order for us to really take our place amongst the affairs of men, if we don't know ourselves by knowing astrology, we'll never know our constitution, thus we won't be able to enforce it.
And you won't know how Rome is playing it because they're all MAs.
They all are.
They reject it for you in the public while mastering it in the chambers.
That's right. That's what they do.
You know, so when you see the Pope, which is really Ptah,
Yes.
Peter, Ptah, Pope, he's really a substitute pharaoh. And he wears a mitre, which is called the square. The tools.
Indeed.
The mitre is the fish head. But they ruled in the Piscean age. But we come with the vessel, the urn of the water.
Yes.
And we washing all that shit away.
Yes.
That's the real truth. Get used to it. But be humble.
Yes.
But be humble.
It's a must.
You know, and while we may make reference to the 7 major chakra centers, there's hundreds of wheels. Get to know them. This is where you want to get into refined, and more sidereal in our dispensations.
Yes.
Which I see you going.
Yes.
You know, and I'm appreciating that you're making sure some people get it in spite of the resistance. Thank you, mother, in the background. Because I know you be doing the movie. But then, you know, and again, we got to get the.
Why don't you do the classes? It's so helpful if they just do.
That's usually how it goes.
You know, the sisters got to come together. You know, because really, because the Elohim, mother, father, you understand, which is really what that really means. They must be taught the truth of the religion so that they can take their places. And once they clean up, we follow.
Right.
Because really, until the sisters really get it together, you know, it doesn't matter. It matters, but not the way you may think it is. How really projective we sons may be. We'll never reach our potential until you all straighten up. You know, you all come together and get over your egos and stuff. And we've had experiences, so let's not go there. And then start focusing. And then you all decide, when y'all get tired of Rome doing what Rome is doing, and understand they come to get y'all now. You know, this is why the Asiatic woman is the fastest growing prison population. They're trying to get rid of you now. You know, so you already know they've been doing stuff to you. But understand, you're going to have to render unto Caesar's what is Caesar's. Once you render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, everything falls in place on its own. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. You don't need to do some mystery thinking and digging in the ancient tombs of Egypt. You need to look beneath your feet, where you stand, and be yourself. And once you all get over yourselves and start honestly learning about the womb, how it works, how it cycles with the moon, how Venus, you deal with fertility, fecundity. We start operating in such a manner that we don't just have sex for fun. You know what I mean?
I'm sorry, you just hit another point. I'm sorry, now let it go. Yes.
Because even in the Farmer's Almanac, and this is what I noticed about this pattern, when there's always, if you can just literally Google it, it's called the best time
in the Farmer's Almanac. They'll tell you the best time to cut your hair, the courage, you know, and all that.
Everything based on nature.
When the moon is in Scorpio, that's when they're usually looking to breed. Usually between the new moon and the full moon is when things that bear fruit above the land, you know, that's when you should plant that seed, because the waters rise between the new moon and the full moon. So usually that's around the time where people are, you know, doing fecundity. So
anyway, on the online, Chief Justice Ben Bey. And for those of you who've been to Alexandria, Virginia, you'll go see Ben Bey's Fez in the last case there. They moved it. Well, we got pictures. They can keep hiding all they want to. So Chief Justice Ben Bey Muali is who you've been told is Benjamin Batterford. And this is the interesting thing too, just as an interim, while the clock that he made is the oldest clock in the north, the oldest clock from the Alhambra in the south, Comayagua, Honduras. From the Alhambra in Andalus is in Honduras, central Mexico. You know, and so Sadie's daughter's up here, Ambassador of Peace, doing her work with others. Comayagua, that clock's over 900 years old, still working. All right, so we ain't talking about a couple hundred here. With the one that Ben built here, the oldest one from the Alhambra is in central Mexico, Comayagua, Honduras. And of course, as the people are waking up, you know that the CIA, which is a branch of the Vatican, of Opus Dei, is actually a branch of Opus Dei, are down there creating a bunch of disruption because they're being disrupted. And so they're doing stuff all over the world. They're going to and fro the earth, devouring nations. And they're going to accelerate. So this is two things I suggest. If you're out of a JOB, don't go in their services. Because if you do, two things are going to happen. They're going to plant you with 9 viruses to get rid of you when they finish with you anyway. Yep. And what they don't do, the karmic debt will get you. Or helping them defeat your own people. Yes, so keep that in mind. So go make yourself a leaf sandwich. Don't go in that service with them. Don't serve Rome in any capacity whatsoever. All right? Go ahead.
Just to mention, the book that the brother talked about, he referenced the Farmer's Almanac.
Yes.
That was Ben Bey's book. In all the colonies, it was the best-selling book.
Yeah.
Because he knew that when you hit that gate, you kind of hit 8 weeks, you knew where to put your seed in the ground, so you had to worry about your crops dying because of frost. That means you got to eat next year. It was very, very, very important. You know?
Keep in mind. Just like
but he's supposed to be a slave, you know what I mean? But he
wasn't.
You know, just be clear.
Keep in mind.
Back in the
keep in mind.
Yeah.
When you're looking at the Bible and you're looking at Septuagint, they're agricultural.
Yes, they are.
Everything's agricultural.
They're agricultural. So keep that in mind too. And that's another thing that the priesthood got to stop lying to the people. But again, you know, we will deal with that and make sure that everyone gets that. So whenever you're looking at the Bible and you see comparisons between the plant life and humanity, or the symbols of the farmer and humanity, it's telling you both your food, how things work, etc. And basically what people have been given in the name of Islam, Judaism, Christianity. When you talk about Constantinian, they misrepresented Christianity by the Constantines who've been corrupting the planet, are astrological. They're astrological, cosmological. And they also deal with the harmonies of watching and studying nature in order to understand how your body develops and how your gland, your structure is activated by seasons and cycles. All right, which is also the activating of what is called the Christ theory. All right, so I just want to throw that out so to give you some directional thought that in your spare time, you go ahead and jump with that. You know, so when you see Jesus come again is just simply the sun rises, and Jesus belongs to everybody. It has nothing to do with your beliefs, because Jesus is indeed the Son, and thus the Son of God, and bring life and light to everyone. It has nothing to do with your beliefs. It has to do with the functions of nature.
Right.
So it's important for you to understand and know the stations of the sun. As you see in the book of the creation of all of men, when it says the stations of the sun, the station of the mighty Allah, you're dealing with positions, primal positions of the ecliptic movements of the sun and its transits in relationship to all the planets, how it affects you, how it feeds you, how it deals with your chemistry, etc. How when the mother in her womb, governed by the moon and Venus, drops eggs from the left or the right fallopian tubes, which makes the Holy Cross, into the uterus or the lap of Mary, earth, etc. How the state of mind, what she eats, how she eats, her knowledge of when her mother brought her here, what phosphates and salts are missing, how she adds that to her plate, how you deal within a radius of 300 miles average for your food source, 3 to 300 miles of your food source, etc., and how to recognize what salts are needed. Usually those which your mother didn't give you in the structure of Solomon's temple. Solomon's temple is your physical body. It is incomplete because of 3 moons that you're not in the womb. And so the knowledge of your foodstuffs, the potentials of certain sicknesses, you will look at the chart and it will tell you. And so the truth of the matter is the high priest is supposed to tell you these things, and that's what will tell you hallelujah to you and wave your hands and give him $5. We'll be going to the heavens. What it means is going into the ephemeral chart and looking at the numbers, looking at the math, looking at the carpenter's tools, the radii of the cycles and the angles of the planets in relationship to one another, the sextile, the conjuncts, etc., and look at the energy outputs. They can see sickness in the future. They can see it in the past. They can do geographical analysis on that, and also that's how prophecy is done. So when prophecies come, oh man, he's mysterious. Who can tell you shit? Now you look at the chart. Right. Learn the truth and do what you're supposed to know. And the deal of it is, we're just trying to agitate you a little bit to liberate your mind. Because once you get rid of the priesthood, nature herself will come to your rescue. At that time, what it really simply means is that when nature and the earth recognizes that you're purifying, that's honor, that's integrity, nature herself simply replugs you to the electrical grid. And once you replug to the electrical grid, you're pulled out of the false matrix. It means you're unplugged from the false matrix, and immediately you start projecting energy to others, and that's how you're taught. And that's also how Rome is defeated. And it's based mostly on your own sincerity. But knowing how the dark priesthood works, we already know that all it takes is a little bit of aggravation. While skirting your ego without, stepping on your ego so you don't punch us. As you start thinking and you start liberating yourself. But once you get to a certain apex point, we don't have to tell you anything. You will start shedding these demons yourself. And at the same time, nature herself, not unlike somebody pulling shades off you. Layers, like somebody wrapped their head, eyes with gauze. And every time they unwrap it, you see a little bit more. And you say, man, look what's coming to be. No, it ain't what's coming to be. It always was. You just didn't see it. And so this is why we're sharing this lesson with you. All right? Just to agitate you to think. Because you need to, because as the people are waking up, Rome is accelerating their false allegorical stories. You understand? In order to try to put people back to sleep. And so this is also why they're killing off a lot of middlemen. So when you see a lot of these, people that are being neutralized, they would call it that. Like the pharmaceutical doctor and his wife and stuff like that, and the other guy, and then you see Brazil disappearing. Whether she's in hiding or not, you see all these bodies dropping and stuff like that. They're not necessarily from the assassin priesthood. a lot of them come from the Kabbalists on this side who are trying to shut off that gate because people are starting to let stuff out because they already know they're going to neutralize them. You know what I mean? So they're trying to save themselves. But what you see is an assurity that the dark priesthood platform is being dismantled. You know, so the point of it is everything that people have in their minds secured themselves with, you know, believing that these institutions were legitimate, they make deals with them and they're going to collapse with them. And this is why, I'm also, spilling this out a little bit so that you all can come closer together with each other. And don't look at each other based on what you think beliefs are. And don't look at somebody because they're Muslim, Christian, or Jew and make judgment. Are we clear? Because all of us have been played. Are we clear? Clear. Are we clear? Deal with what people do, what they are, as a man doing, as a man thinking, so to say. But the fundamental truths, you can go in the Bible, the Quran, philosophy, the Vedas, etc., and find these root truths, because they all have the same origin. Are we clear? There's another reason why we're sharing Holy of Holies with you. Some of the pieces in it, so that you understand the priesthood, whether they Muslim, Christian, or Jew, they all got this stuff. It's just that if they teach the people the truth, then they can't line their pockets with the people. They got to get a J.O.B. You know what I mean? But as the truth comes out, these institutions is going to come down. That's where the Bible talks about, the weapons and stuff that were made in the plowshares. So that means all these buildings and stuff that they've done to keep the people under mind control will become useless. Because there ain't nobody going to be paying. So they got to find something else to do. But ultimately, the platform is going to come down because they're going to create more lies to try to save themselves. We're going to try to reestablish the priesthood as it was in the Piscean paradigm. But it cannot be done on the Aquarian platform. So the best thing they can do is leave the planet. And the deal is, as soon as they go past stratosphere, they're going to shoot them down anyway. So they ain't going. So now they can go down. You understand? When they go down, there's more than one parallel of others been here with us anyway. And they ain't gonna let them bring that dirt down there. So they gotta face how they say, they gotta cash their checks. Saturn says, you got any checks? What checkbook you got? And you wrote that last week. You cashed that this week. But I'm gonna put that off to later because you cash it. And this is the Uranus Saturn paradigm.
Yes, it is.
You wolf ticket, huh?
Well, actually, more.
No, wolf ticket. You put where it come from.
Well, yeah.
Wolf ticket, projected. Yeah. And then you find yourself in the middle of the arena. That wasn't for me.
It's always about to be big payback, Robert Taj. Just to say. Just briefly,
I like that brother started.
I be trying to be quiet, but it be hard. Bear witness. But Saturn and Sagittarius is saying that freedom, liberation, and justice, sort of, kind of like I was watching some astrologers that we enjoy, because there's a lot of European astrologers that share our same sentiment, like equally, you know what I mean? And they was even like, love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice is going to reign strong in 2018.
And anything that's not built under love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice will come down.
Yes.
So even the effort that they put in, see, this is where the arrogance comes in. The arrogance come in because they've had the protections of Opus Dei and the Jesuits. And they got used to it. And anyone who opposed the priesthood, they simply murdered them. They've gotten comfortable with that. And they don't know. It's not that intellectually they don't know. It's sort of like the psychology of comfort habit.
Right. And then I want to move.
They've been impostoring so long that They believe they're Americans.
That's actually
you understand? The Aquarian lords ain't having it. And they ain't, man. It's good because it's bigger room.
yes.
You know, everybody looking at their individual charts. Yeah, I got this, I'm ducking, but this room is big.
Yeah. Yes.
To sweep the whole room at one time.
Yes.
Damn, how they make a room that big? All Aquarius. There ain't no shadows. Go ahead, good brother.
Do you guys see like I guess a coming together of all different religions in the next?
Well, this is why you see the Pope trying to do that. Now, let me say this to you. Now, there's multiple ways to look at this. Some MAs on the planet have said that Pope Francis, though tainted, is trying to come to the light. Right?
Pontius Pilate.
I look at it this way. Whatever good he rejects, that's accepted and that's fine. I put no salt in it necessarily. Do you understand? Because I already know that they're being forced. You know, when someone is forced to act right, and they weren't necessarily doing it before, you know what I mean? So I look at it that way. But I'll say this. Some of the things you see taking place, some things that are going to take place, some things that are taking place and have taken place that is not, the general public is not aware of yet. That's going to be made aware of very soon. Some of the things that we looked at as negatives were done actually to fix things.
Yes. Yes.
And so we've got to kind of look at this with, and it's hard to do, but with a less judgmental eye.
And an objective eye.
Yeah. And always trying to be objective and try to keep your own personality out of it, which we have a tendency to do. And definitely keep your ego out of it. If you understand. So, look at some of the negatives that have been in place that we've been battling against for the purpose of redeeming our own people. Some of that was in place to force them actually into life.
That makes sense.
Maybe they was getting their asses kicked to force them into the temple of light. Because they're scratching and crawling, trying to maintain the Piscean energies. Because they've been bought off. And not necessarily understanding that it's over, not because we say it is.
Right.
Because it's over. And that a lot of the transitional modifications actually keep them from cracking up. Because if, according to the etheric plane, how things have really happened, if they was imprinted with that, a lot of them would not be able to stand the vibration.
They were vaporized, though.
Yeah. So like for real. You know what I mean? And then you want them to absorb the information without getting into the spooky mentality, which is what we're trying to get them out of.
Yes.
You know, but anyway, I don't want to belabor that, but I wanted you to think along those lines. You know, and I see you wrapping your hands so therefore you have to get up, Brother Mike.
Ooh.
Yeah, Brother Heru, and then Second Rob. Come on, because I know you was feeling it.
Huh? Oh.
M.A.? Well, so what do you have to do about, what did you notice about the charts lately? Give me an overview. What do you say? Because we open and close our meetings according to the Circle 7. And we ain't talking about 8 o'clock. No, I'm just throwing something out there to give you something, stimulate thought. And I know that you're modest, and I know that you, but I called you to the floor.
It's hot now.
Why don't you say what's on, see, you rub your head, so tell me what's on the top of your head. You know what's going out here in the energies, because you have a projection of lesson that you have to help someone else with.
Islam.
Alright. Recently, I tried to
Thank you.
just fall back and not say too much and not be out there.
Oh, I know that.
Like you just put me out there.
I know that.
But in doing so, I kind of realized that I was, watching the charts. I realized that some things I needed to do and I wasn't doing,
Mm-hmm.
so I was forced to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, stand in the middle of a tribunal in reference to something that happened like 500,000 years ago, right? And it showed me that it was going to be a lot of support system, in reference to this same situation, and it wasn't just going to come from, people that I just came in contact with. What it did was it came from people that I didn't even know.
Yes.
And then this brother and Moors ordered a round table. They all stepped in. They all made sure everything was straight on my behalf, to the point where I didn't even know what was going on. I walked outside and everybody was there for me.
Uh-huh.
But it made me step to these magistrates and in such a way that
Made you navigate,
that
navigate, and use your tools.
I had to do it.
And use your tools.
Yes, true. And every piece of support system that came across, that I knew, these people, they really just came. People seen stuff that was happening I didn't know they seen, and before I knew it, when I came outside, I was greeted by this brother, other people who didn't know what was going on, all because, I finally had to take, I guess, responsibility and do what I was supposed to do.
And start pulling out your tools, navigating.
Yeah.
But let's look at this. When you look at the 7 articles, of the Constitution, 4 adopted from Muslim law for operations in the North Gate, and people who have been keepers of the North Gate have violated their trust.
Yes.
However, within the 10 planetary Bill of Rights articles, positive law, if you look at 4 and 6, and if you pay attention to what it's stating, you're looking at astrological movement.
Yes.
Of course you are. All right, I see you. You got skates on. That's what I wanted you to look at. So you decided to, what? Conjunct or face your accuser?
Yes, and
The negative
facing
energy?
back.
Now, was the accuser willing to face you
No.
once you
In
stood
fact-
up
In fact, it was
on a living perpendicular?
In fact, they turned into what they refer to as a fictitious plaintiff.
Therefore, he has no jurisdiction but what you give him. Therefore, the lower self or Satan has no power but what you give him. That is an astrological construct. That's what I was trying to pull out of you. Because you exercised it then, and you already got other plans to exercise it further, to shut them down.
Yeah, I was working on that before I got picked.
So he might have legs of iron and feet of clay. You stepped on his toes, didn't you?
Yeah, most definitely.
If the foundation is weak, that heaviness pulls every other thing down, don't it? So have faith and go beyond that and go into fruition. All right. Thank you, good brother. Give her a real hand because he's trying to hide. But go ahead, brother. Give us some help. Let's talk about stations of the sun real quick.
Oh, you talking to me? I was just looking at 4 and 6 real quick.
But go ahead.
Okay, all right.
Well, let's see what I can see out of Amendment 4. The right of the people to be secure. Okay, so when you talk about security, that's cancer.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's ruled by the moon as well. So the moon is feminine energy dealing with security, which is normally what mother is about.
Go ahead.
So it says for the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures.
So we talk about, those are hereditaments, aren't they?
Yes.
Go ahead, keep on.
Shall not be, against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause. And usually they don't have probable cause because it's always.
But they're never questioned, are they?
Right. Right, they're never questioned.
Because someone didn't know to question, did they?
Right, exactly.
What, didn't Raleigh set up the Moors Temple of Science as a civic organization to teach government instruction?
That's a perfect setup, but the administration is a little.
Oh, so he says in due time, more genius citizens
Islam.
or children of the nation will come forth to solve these problems. It's in the divine word by the prophet of the nation, isn't it?
To carry out the law.
Another astrological
Yes.
instrument.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is.
And so is Act 6. Of the Moorish Science Temple of America.
Yes, it is.
In harmony with Article 6 of that Constitution.
Yes, it is.
Uh-huh. Go ahead, I see the wheels.
You already know.
You got oil up there too, because they ain't smoking. They're turning.
Because I got both, you said Article 6, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
And Act 6, right?
And while you're at it, Seth Rob, give us the date. Give us the date. Because I already know, because people be busting me all the time. When the next class at Durkhouse Apartments, because we know we made adjustments. Go ahead. We got the text, but the people in there.
Yeah, I posted it too, though, on Facebook. But there you go.
Good.
I got to repost it.
Right. Yeah, it works.
It
works.
You
can sing too.
I don't want to anyway. Next class is January 13th and January 27th at the York House. Anybody who hasn't been there, 5325 Old York Road, that's in the Philadelphia territory.
All right, thank you. They be bugging me to death. You already know that. And we get the text, but the public don't get the text.
Right.
Because we just did the class Friday, and within hours, within a couple hours, they had over 8,000 or 8,000 hits, or 18,000 hits.
A few days.
Days? How many days?
Days. It took a few days.
So people be asking, even if they don't make it, because they be getting it through other channels. Meaning that the world's watching you.
Well, they are.
You all, I do apologize. When some call me, they send greetings from Japan to the Moors.
Indeed.
All right.
Can meet you all.
All right.
Got it.
Go ahead.
All righty.
Act 6. This is from the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, the Divine Constitution and Bylaws.
Go ahead.
Act 6. With us, all members must proclaim their nationality, and we are teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed. That they may know that they are a part and parcel of this said government, and know that they are not Negroes, colored folks, black people, or Ethiopians, because these names were given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865 during the time of slavery.
I'm seeing how it goes.
So therefore you have orbital plane interruption.
Yes.
It's cheating.
Yes.
So done consciously by the priesthood to steal the birthright. So they give them false charts. That's what dogma is.
Right, and that's a waste of time.
And so you're bringing them back
Right.
into the orbital planes. When they declare their nationality and nativity, how do you mark the nativity?
The belly button.
And then how do you mark it in the ethereal plane? Do a mathematical calculation of the womb carrier. Islam.
There's a question out here. I know the answer, but I just want to say it because it may be, there may be others. There's a brother here who's saying, how does one proclaim his or her nationality? No one ever tells anyone this. And that's not true. That's not true, but...
Well, if it's not true, then answer it themselves.
No, I'm saying it's not true. They didn't say that. I'm saying it's not true.
Yeah.
But that no one ever says.
We always tell people, when they start studying themselves, they will find it. Go to an ordinary child's dictionary and then look up black, what they thought they were, and they'll see it's Middle English, 1100, 1500, actually means pale colors, and people who claim to be spiritual and connected have been telling people that's complexion of skin and that it's also carbon of the universe, when it actually Middle English it means pale colors. Also mean white spot. It does have nothing to do with skin complexion whatsoever. And look beneath that, and they will give you what's called third grade grammatical dispensation of a compound word saying black or more, and then tell you, separate the adjective, even the way they structured it in written forms, and show you the bloodline of these people, men, women, and children who think they're Africans and Negroes and Moors, right there in Child's Dictionary. Go look at it.
Islam, but I would say in a very, very elementary manner in terms of how one would proclaim his or her nationality, that they simply, to proclaim means to tell, to say, declare. So first person you got to tell is yourself.
Exactly.
You gotta study to know what it is, and then when you realize that's who you are, you have to say, yes, I'm Moor. I'm a Moor.
Now let's look at this.
It's not the paperwork that makes you a Moor.
39th book of the Bible. Yahshua, they call Jesus. 39th book of the Bible is book of Ruth the Moabite, his great-great-grandmother. She was Moabite. What do you think he was?
Moabite.
Oh, well, is that hard to understand?
No.
Did he have hair like lamb's wool, skin like burnished brass?
That's the description.
Well, it don't look like the picture that these people who keep claiming to be religious have in these houses that they keep calling the Lord's house. Look like Michelangelo's cousin to me. Looking like a Roman. So they're Moabite and so are you. And if our people knew that book so much, we wouldn't have to be answering that question, would we? Because every man, every woman, and even every child must confess their own and worship under their own vine and fig tree. So your nativity is the honor of your mothers and your fathers. And clearly we haven't. That's why we've been getting our asses kicked.
Because this person wants to know what the process is, but the
process is consciousness.
Yeah.
Once you know who you are, you start acting like you know, you start sharing it, that's the process. It's not paperwork.
It's not paperwork.
Is only as a reversion because the European has bonds around the world. And so you're making what is called an adverse claim when you do paperwork to tell Rome that you're not Negro, black, or colored, etc. And it starts interfering with the movement of his derivative bonds. That's what those papers represent. However, if you are not sincere with the papers, you can't defend it because it must be who you are.
Sincerity.
Sure, sincerity. That's the same way that nature reattaches us to the Akashic record, by our sincerity, not by the data.
That's right.
You know, the Bible, you know, as being a former pastor, we talk about salvation, and this just came to mind. If somebody's telling him just say it out of his mouth, it's like, if thou would confess with thy mouth and believe in thy heart that I am a Moor, I'm Moor.
When you do research, when you do ecclesiastical research, you'll find that the word salvation equates with knowledge.
Right.
Not you being brought from some place to some other place. It equates with knowledge. It absolutely does. You know, so the people have not been getting their butts kicked because they lack faith. They haven't been getting their butts kicked because they lacked belief. They've been getting their butts kicked because they lack knowledge.
The Bible says we rejected knowledge.
Oh, and the Quran says Allah will reject those who reject knowledge.
I'm sorry, y'all doing it right now.
You know, so that is the rescue of the world. You know, being brought back into the knowledge. You know, and so a lot of times we'll make comparisons or allegorical stories to get people to think.
Yes.
That's what, to get them to think. To start recognizing that they actually already know. It's just that they don't respect their own thinking because they've been trained not to respect their divine mind. And we're just agitating you to get you to appreciate your divine mind. In doing so, you will liberate yourself, not because we said so, it's because you will discover you.
I agree.
Go ahead.
What I'm noticing, Brother Taj, is I'm out, you know, in a Baltimore corporation, you come across people that ask these type of questions.
Yes.
You know, and what I'm actually realizing from my own declaration and proclamation is I have, even though I got the so-called quote-unquote white education, as it said, I had to come to grips with myself that I'm hard-headed.
And we all are.
So, right, but it's like if I make it within myself, instead of looking for something outside of me to tell me I'm hard-headed, then it's like if I'm just looking at me and reflecting on me, since that's my business and I'm minding that, you know, then certain questions stop coming to mind because I start to actually have that answer come from within because I'm no longer lying to
You
myself.
start respecting yourself.
Right.
And so with the astrological projection, you deal about, say, Isaiah 64, 65.
Okay.
And I hold my hand out all the day long to a hard-hearted and rebellious people who are not called by my name. When they repent from their sinful ways, I will hear from heaven and heal their land, L-A-N-D. Does land spell cloud?
No.
Does land spell ethereal plane?
We just made a connection again.
That's right.
Nothing.
Now, just trying to get you started.
So now that you said that, now people can see how we just read Acts 6 and see what's part and parcel.
There you go.
Because if you're healing land, then your body is what's being healed. We're part and parcel to that, which is not only earth, but the other three elements,
And
fire,
in law,
water, and air.
when you're talking land, what does it include? In law, more than what people think the
It
average
includes
is.
everything above the coordinates of land that you're speaking and everything below as well.
And many rights and liberties not expressed in the aggregate term land itself.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Well, technically, any property is considered land. And
So the kingdom of God will be established where? On a cloud or on where?
on the planet.
Terra
On
firma.
the land.
Terra firma.
So we ain't talking about disappearing, are we?
No.
We ain't talking about being in the casket, are we?
No.
So what has happened with these people where they think they're going to go someplace else?
Denial.
Who did that to them?
Delusion.
The priesthood did it to him. The priesthood did it to him. He's been taking all of their pennies. You see where Jesus was arguing with the priesthood, stealing the widow's pennies?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, all right.
We've been paying for our mental enslavement.
Yes, paying for their
We've
own
been financing it.
Go ahead.
Let's just make sure we're clear. Real estate is the body.
Yes. Yes.
Everything's in agriculture. You are the real estate.
Exactly.
And as far as owning anything, that's a concept that ain't really come from us.
Yeah.
That's their concept.
Yeah.
It's the only
Okay,
thing
so-
you can be accountable to.
Now, look, what's happening? What is it that we're actually doing? We're getting people to stop disrespecting the physical plane and stop trying to dismiss their estate on the earth under the guise and the spookiness that thinking religion is up on a cloud somewhere in the ethereal plane. While the priests have been robbing you of all your substance, vampires, and getting away with it. Do you understand?
Indeed.
So the free humanity, and like Drawley said, a beggar people cannot develop the higher spirituality in themselves. Right?
Right.
And he also said what our press is the most powerful weapon in the hand of our group. So we understand why certain people got rid of the prophet's press. It wasn't Europeans either. The person was wearing turbans and feathers.
Well, since God is to call upon, the press has never been, gone anywhere. It's just the mindset of those of us that don't realize that we have been called upon by Mother's thought, which is the Immaculate Conception.
Exactly. So what is our duty and responsibility to do? To restore that which was lost.
Islam.
And to do it with knowledge.
Islam.
All right? And the only way you do that is to get people to make space. Like an overloaded hard drive. They got to dump the trash out of it. And the apps that they don't use that are useless, that are distracting, and the bugs and the viruses, and replace it with good stuff.
Yes.
But to do it, they got to go back to the state of mind of their ancient mothers and fathers. Why? Because they must get back onto the proper orbital planes.
Yes.
All right?
Yes.
Well, I mean, you know that, but I'm just saying. All right, so what they saying?
Different things, but one of the things I wanted to say, just to interject, was that the fact that even when I was in the role of pastor, one of the things that we were sure to advise the people strongly against was astrology. We didn't say astrology; we said horoscopes, and even the word horror attached to it. To me now, looking back, but horror as we knew horror, we were told to stay away from that, and that's the very thing. That's why I told people now, anything that they told you to stay away from, run to, because 9 times out of 10, that's where you're gonna find your truth, your answer.
And that remind me of, I was listening to one of your sermons today on one of your older
The
DVDs.
daughters.
Was it 204, somewhere in that area?
Oh, give the daughters.
When you were talking about the daughters.
Give the daughters their inheritance.
And this is back to the point, even the lessons in the Bible. When you were talking about women getting their rightful inheritance, it's not taking something from the sons, but it is what is rightfully theirs, but treated as if it isn't, simply because through dogma, in the name of religion, they were using God and Jesus as a front to actually steal from women and then call it religion.
Absolutely.
And then saying God ordained it and getting away with it. It is not unlike telling the truth now. Until that is corrected, all of this rest of this crap will not be corrected. And it has nothing to do with competing sons with their mother.
Right.
It's putting things in perspective of what they really are and what they really should be. And then allowing people to get away with corruption in the name of religion and not be challenged. That crap came from the priesthood. It didn't come from a misinterpretation of the Bible. It didn't come from a misinterpretation of the Quran or the other books. It's the corruption of the priesthood, and people have not questioned them. But the priesthood is dead. And they have nothing to offer humanity but to get out of the way. And that's the real truth. It doesn't matter if they don't want to anyway, because the Aquarian light ain't going to allow them to hide anyway. So and the more crap they tell to try to suppress the truth, the more they're going to be exposed. And they're going to do it themselves. They're hypocritical, greedy selves with expensive suits that don't damn belong to them. Go ahead, sis.
I wanted to share.
Get to the mic, please.
I was trying.
Hit the button up.
Sorry. I was trying to stay quiet today and just observe. But when I walked in, I had an experience with the Empress here.
Mm-hmm.
And she placed upon me a responsibility to share. And the brother that just left this particular chair, he said, we are the estate. Mm-hmm. And we've been speaking in agricultural terms. Mm-hmm. And what powers agriculture? Mm-hmm. Is it not the sun? Mm-hmm.
The moon in Venus is not the moon that governs the tides.
Yes.
Then is it not the moon that governs the waters of Fallopian tube of the Holy Cross?
Yes.
Does not it have a cycle?
Yes.
And when women cycle through the uterus, does not cycle on 7?
Yes.
It does. Then is that mathematically provable? Does that have anything to do with belief?
No.
Then why don't people understand that woman is a walking calendar?
Thank you. It's pure science.
Sure is.
And on
Yes.
that note, the sun.
Right.
You know, Dr. Sadie spoke much about electric cell food.
Yes.
Electric cell food. And with the genetic modification of what they are calling food, which is just pharmaceuticals, we are at the point where we have to make a quantum leap. And the quantum leap has to do with our ability to take in the sun's energy.
Yes.
So I'm going to direct everyone to a specific source that will assist us in understanding and understanding the power that we have in our optic nerves. www.kindness, KINDNESS, 2.com. And if you allow me, I'd like to
Repeat
share.
that so they can.
www.kindness, KINDNESS, 2.com. And I'll start off with a few paragraphs. It says, Europe and America have little reliable history of the ancient world. That history was destroyed by the church in the 4th century when they burned down the Library of Alexandria. Then the church fathers wrote their own history of the ancient world, and that is the history contained today in the encyclopedias. Much of it is false, incorrect, and misleading. That is the reason why we find no correct account of the ancient masters and their wonderful work. Ancient people in every culture and religion knew that sunlight was the key to immortality and enlightenment. The ancient Incas, Egyptians, Hindus, Zoroastrians, Essenes, Greeks, Romans, Chinese, and Native Americans would gaze at the sun during certain times of the day. Most traditional archaeologists, anthropologists, and religious organizations dismiss this as the sun worship of primitive societies. They also ignore the fact that the great teacher of sun gazing, otherwise known as El Dorado Quetzalcoatl, raised the primitive tribes of the Central and South American jungles into civilized societies that had knowledge of medicine, metallurgy, farming, animal husbandry, writing, engineering, mathematics, and astronomy, with cities containing hundreds of stone buildings, water and sewer systems, and paved roads. Now, here's the caveat. What is sun gazing? Sun gazing is cost-free. Practice that will free mankind from mental and physical disease and spiritual ignorance. Sun gazing is a practice that includes gazing at the sun for the purpose of purported nourishment or spiritual practice. One of the most famous sun gazer, Hira Ratan Manek, also known as HRM, y'all can YouTube him, says that one must practice sun gazing for a period of 9 months, and the practitioner need never take food again. He and his followers practice sun gazing, and they receive nourishment and other benefits from sun gazing, often to either complement or replace eating food, because what y'all eating is not food, y'all eating chemicals. A form of anemia, or you can also say breatharianism. Proponents of sun gazing claim increased energy levels and decreased appetites, as with other forms of anemia. The medical industry, again, I repeat, because I ain't scared, the medical industry has scared people with warnings about the sun causing blindness, cancer, and damaged immune system. So we slather on toxic sunscreens wear sunglasses when we're outside, and we run from our tinted cars to our jobs or homes under the protective cover of umbrellas. If we can't sunbathe or sun gaze due to adverse weather or being struck indoors, how can we get the full spectrum light our bodies need to stay healthy and happy? So you sun gaze one time up to 1 hour after sunrise, or 1 hour before sunset. You stand erect with bare feet on bare ground, remove your glasses, raise your arms, palm facing out. Begin with 10 seconds without blinking. If you blink, start to count again. It's a discipline. Increase 10 seconds per day. If cloudy, sun gaze, but don't increase the time. When you reach 44, a master number, minutes of sun gazing, reduce the time 1 minute per day to 15 minutes and stay there for the rest of your life. When it's cold, do it indoors through an open window. If ill, affirm, visualize sunlight going to your problem area. Express gratitude. That is the new form of electric cell food.
Yes.
Drink sunlight, stay alive.
Yes. All right. And Brother Dave and Sister Tina, truth. Since the body does not produce itself vitamin D, which is primary, sun gives you that. And with that principle of appreciating Jesus, which is the sun, most cancers will be reduced, particularly in males. Anyway, so go get the sun, go get your vitamin D, you don't need a bottle.
And by the way, I did it for a full 30 days, and I lost 30 to 40 pounds. I couldn't figure out how I did it until I had to stop and say, okay, what am I doing every day? Because I'm eating every day, but what am I doing every day that is causing this to happen? And what happened? I was working in Florida at a manufacturing plant, and my boss was very stressful. So I would walk in with her, but stay in the car for 2 hours every morning. So I sun gazed without knowing I was sun gazing, because just staring at the sun was the peace that I needed. Little did I know I was actually feeding and also losing weight. So here you go. You ain't got the diet, just sun gaze.
I bear witness.
Go ahead.
I was trying to stay quiet. I've been in hiding for a while, ain't nobody seen me. Right? But I need y'all to keep one thing in mind. When you hear a report like that, like the sister just read, and you hear them saying, don't sun gaze, and you hear them talking about putting on sunscreen, you know when it's hot outside, they say, don't get any more than 30 minutes of sun per day and then go in the house. But come on now, when we was little, we was outside all day. We came in the whole shade darker every day. Right? But you got to keep this in mind, who's giving you these reports. They can't take the sun. Right? Their skin is not equipped to absorb the sun. Their skin is equipped to burn in the sun. Right? Now, if their skin is void of melanin, their eyes are void of melanin. When you see those blue eyes and you see those gray eyes and those green eyes, they can't absorb the sunlight. So they cannot sun gaze. So when you hear those reports, they ain't for us. Those reports are for them.
Exactly right.
Right? You do exactly what she said. You go out at sunrise. Listen, I had the opportunity probably about 15 years ago to watch the sunrise for the first time. I never forget it, on the back of a boat, going fishing. It was the last time I went fishing too, but anyway. I watched the sunrise for the very first time, and I seen something that just blew my mind. To actually know that the earth is on that 20, just to watch the sunrise. I've been quiet for a long time, so I got all this stuff in me, right? But just to watch the sunrise for the first time just blew me away. So now when I'm at work every day, I get to see the sunrise. I don't know if y'all ever get to see the sunrise.
Yeah.
Right? And just stand there and just absorb it. Right? It's not going to kill you. When you start sun gazing, initially, it might start bothering some of your eyes. Your eyes might start to water. You might start to feel a strain. Just look away for a second and then get back at it. Don't let these Europeans tell you what you can't do. They can't do.
Right.
That sun is killing them, and they'll tell you the sun is killing them. It's too hot. We never needed sunscreen as 6-year-olds. We should have needed it as 40-year-olds. Mm-hmm. Our skin is no weaker than it was when we were 6. I'll put the microphone down because I'll be out here all night.
Go ahead. The only reason why people of color can't stand the sun is if their body's over acid.
Yes, indeed.
If your diet is incorrect, you can't take the sun. When your diet is correct, when it's alkaline, you can take the sun. The sun will not affect you. So when I hear our brothers and sisters say, I can't take this heat, I can't stand the sun, I know right away that their body's over acid. Yeah. Too much acid in your system. So you can't take it if it's over acid. You know what I mean? That's why you need to eat more electrical foods, more green foods.
You drink lime water.
Yes.
Lime water. Sun gaze anyway. Drink lime water.
But if your diet is correct, you can handle the sun.
Yeah.
You know? Yes. We are children of the sun.
Yes.
And what Brother Taj was saying about vitamin D, you know, I tell people all the time that you get calcium, magnesium, and vitamin D from the sun naturally. But when we're in this period of time, the sun is further away from us, and because we have, this melt, we don't get as much. So you have to supplement from plant-based sources to get enough magnesium, vitamin D, and calcium, because we don't get enough when the sun is further away from us. And that's why you get into these periods like in the month of February where they tell you that, this is heart month. Well, your heart needs calcium, magnesium, and vitamin D to function properly. Yes. And if the sun is further away from you and this period starts to take place around the end of October, by the time you reach February, you will be so calcium, magnesium, and vitamin D deficient that something will be wrong with your heart. And if you don't know how to supplement. So you have to supplement.
Magnesium is responsible for 325 processes in your body. I'll repeat it again. Thank you, brother, for sharing that. Magnesium is responsible for 325 processes in your body. But you need it to bind with calcium and zinc. So here's what you can do to supplement that, to add to what you shared with us. You supplement with actual magnesium, and then you supplement that magnesium with magnesium, calcium, and zinc. And that will help you get rid of a lot of malaise that is happening to us as carbon people, because magnesium is responsible for 25% of what we need to function. Now imagine the urbanites like us in urban realities who don't get too much sunlight, who are under fluorescent lights at the plantation. Imagine how deficient you are. So you experience cramps, you experience headaches, you're dehydrated. But if you do your sun gazing with your lime water in the morning and your lime water at noon and your lime water in the evening, you can sustain and gradually amp up your opportunity to take in more of the sun's energy and begin to decalcify your pineal gland.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Sadie, for sharing electric cell food, because now it's not even about herbs no more, because everything you're getting has been bastardized or hybridized, right? So, they can't do that to the sun, my people. Drink sunlight. I beg you to drink sunlight and decalcify your pineal gland. It will create a product called Amrita. Amrita, during sun gazing or deep meditation, Amrita is produced. It fills the grail and drips down the back of the throat. Amrita has an intensely sweet taste described as nectar, honey, gold dust, euphoric, ecstatic, and intoxicating and giving the feeling of being imbued with holiness. Sun gazing, if done correctly, gradually awakens the pineal gland along with the pituitary gland so that the person is not shocked by experiences of higher consciousness. And these experiences are not colored by negative images of the mind because you've been told the sun is going to kill you. But the biochemistry of Amrita, which is DMT, increases all pituitary hormones and beta endorphins, vasopressin, prolactin, growth hormone, and cortisol. It's possible that DMT-induced surge of beta endorphins creates the euphoria of an Amrita experience. Serotonin receptors are activated by DMT, and serotonin receptors regulate heart rate, blood pressure, body temperature, and pupil diameter. Apparently, DMT is a small molecule not much larger than glucose, and it's brain food that is rapidly transported across the blood-brain barrier. Do your research.
Brother Taj, I will say in that microprocipus video, you made that suggestion to do the breathing exercise, and when you can do it, to get out there in the earth and gaze at the sun. I did actually experiment with that before I even stepped foot in the House of Reawakening Minds, like a year and a half. And for a year or so, I noticed not only was I losing weight, not only was my vision getting better, I wasn't, certain foods I wouldn't even want anymore because it tasted different.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, I bear witness to what Brother Ra has said, and what Mother Sai said, and what Brother David said, and what you're bringing to the table, because in my experience, you know, like you said, don't believe nothing, go and search it for yourself. And I'm telling you, like, when you really get in that earth barefoot, what you really realize in the spring is, the more you do it, the animals, the birds, and the bugs will actually symphony around you.
Yes.
They won't bother you, the ants won't crawl on you, nothing will try to sting you, and it's actually, it's very euphoric, so to speak. But we are going to have to, as everyone, you're going to have to take what you've heard tonight and really take your shoes off, get out in that grass, and really stare at that sun.
The Prophet Nuwali told us to do that.
Say that one more time.
Prophet Nuwali told us to do that.
Islam.
Take your shoes off, place your feet on the ground. You know, Dr. Nailah, share with us one of your poetries on sunrise, sunshine. Come on.
Well, now that I have two cell phones.
Yeah, and Lucy got the shades. You got two of them.
I can't find my glasses. I'm just going to read from my cell phone.
You want me to turn this around?
Not necessarily. They don't have to see me.
Oh, they don't have to
I'm going to let them see Brother Taj watching me.
Okay.
Yeah. This poem is called, you guys see me, right? It's called The Sun Kissed. Ironically. It says, don't tell me I'm not loved by the sun. You see, I am sun-kissed while they are sunburned. It's a cosmic love affair for which others yearn. Our interaction creates liquid gold. When they get too close, it makes them grow old. The sun within me activates a life-sustaining precious matter about which much scientific chatter has created a sort of feeding frenzy that now desperate vamps hunt me to drain my dark substance to help them exist in this cosmic love affair between the sun and the sun-kissed.
I know we have another question. What is the question?
Any questions? Let me see. Okay. They sent in a lot of love. I'm assuming those love hearts are for my poem. Thank you so very much. Thank you very much. My book is still available. Tell them, Dodge, they need to get it.
Give me that book.
Where is it at?
He's got the
in that box right there.
Undercover.
Let me see if there's any questions. But anywho, sweet. Let me see. I'm trying to.
Go ahead, you all.
Yeah, that's my book. Poetry is Musings of an Undercover Writer, with the foreword written by Grand Sheik. So let me see if there are any questions. I will say this.
Because it's good reading, particularly because I got two of them, on both sides of my bed. Every once in a while I just jump in it for re-inspiration. I'm a poet myself, so.
Yeah, that's right.
I have a great appreciation for it and the artistry and the ethereal or spiritual, even the humor, but there's a very strong spiritual side, and it has in itself healing qualities, because there's a vibration that's carried with it. So for those of you who are here, and those of you who are looking, make sure you get this for yourself, and also share it with others. It's good, makes a good gift. It really does.
How do we get it?
You can get it right here if you're here. People online can get it via. I'm sorry. You can get it via PayPal. To get it online, it's 15 notes, and you just have to say that it's the book that you want, and not something else. But to get it in person here, it's only 10. So that's different, because we got postage and handling. So here they're 10, and to get it online, it's 15. I think I have maybe less than 50 copies. Maybe I have about 50 copies. I had about 600 copies. I have about 50 copies left, and if you would like to get a copy, I certainly will sign it for you and so forth.
All right.
But let me just see if there are any questions. But I've written a lot of poems since that book published, and I have another book that'll be coming out.
Oh yes.
But that one is that was good. I'm just scrolling through. Okay. Somebody was saying that their wife, Brother Yusuf Nasser Bey, said his wife has been experiencing pain in the middle of her forehead and seeing lights. And he I don't know.
She needs to drink water.
Yeah.
It sounds like dehydration, Brother Yusuf.
Well, if the symptoms is in her head, it might be a problem in the kidneys.
Okay, and it could be kidneys if you're hearing that.
You said the middle of her forehead?
Middle of her forehead. Oh yeah, you're here, Brother Dave. That's true.
That's the area of the intestines.
Okay.
So there's
intestines.
She's dealing with constipation.
Yeah, she needs to
She's some issues.
So that's some water too, still, because water will be
water and diet.
Yeah.
But clean out the intestinal tract.
Definitely got to clean out the intestinal tract. And anytime you have any pain in that area, when you have like a headache, if it's in the middle of your forehead, always think constipation. There's always going something on with constipation, because that's the area when you talk about physiognomy is where you're looking at a person's, if there's discoloration there, there's something going on with the intestines.
Got it. So find a good place to get a good colonic. Matter of fact, if you all live in Delaware or Philadelphia or New Jersey, turn around, sis. Tell them about the special. Here.
Infinity Health and Wellness has a Black Friday special that is going on until February 1st. And there's $20 off for a 45-minute colonic session. So that will be $35 for your colonic session, which cleans your colon, water only, warm water only, no additives added to the system at all. And so it's very safe, clean, and in a comfortable, safe environment. So,
Where is it again?
The location is at 6 Larch Avenue, Suite 397.
Well, I'm going to type it in. You say it's 6.
Larch.
Now that's for Wilmington. That's the one in Wilmington.
The Wilmington location?
LARCH?
Yes.
Avenue?
Yes. Suite 397. And that's in Wilmington, Delaware. Yeah, let me get the telephone number for you. Sorry. We don't remember numbers anymore.
I had 10 numbers in my brain.
But she has some flash drives.
Okay, the telephone number where you can book your appointment is area code 302-543-5717.
Okay, and they're also in
5747?
5717.
And they're also located in Philadelphia?
Yes, there's also the main location is in Philadelphia. And you can go online. I don't have that address off the top of my head, but you can go online to Infinity Health and Wellness.
Infinity Health, Brother Jarrell based
Infinity Health and Wellness.com, and you can look at both locations and get a little information about the entire process of colon hydrotherapy and the benefits of it.
Thank you. Yeah, I recently, I think in November, I bought like a 3-pack, and it was not $35, 35 notes. But I got it done. I got 3 done in a period of 2 weeks. I got 3 colonics, and it's an open system, and I love the open system. I've had the closed systems where you need a therapist in there, with taking the tube and putting it up there, but open systems is the one where you're in that nice room by yourself with the machine, and you don't have to talk about it. But nobody's putting anything inside you. You do it yourself, and then the machine does all the work. And it's very nice, very clean. So no, it's a very good system that I would highly recommend. Since we're talking about it, let me look on here to see if there's any. I gotta put my sunshades on. These are the only glasses I have to have. Any more questions? Somebody says, speak. Question? Oh, okay, I'll take it. Hey, Mike's coming to you.
So peace. So it's not so much a question as 2 comments I've been sitting on. One having to do with the magnesium. When I was at, so I also got a high dose of, Western schooling. I went to UPenn and I studied neuroscience, and it was fascinating to me, how certain elements would interact with the body, and magnesium is amazing in the sense that it helps neurons to grow. Yes. It is directly involved in that process of opening these electrical gates to allow for a flood of this potential that can especially form higher connections within the memory cortex of your mind. So magnesium, key element to get into the diet, and in the proper quantities and the right doses. One of the things that I've been focusing my efforts on as I've been moving more into understanding agriculture is focusing on microgreens. I don't know if everyone's familiar with microgreens, but I want to bring them up now that we're talking about the cleansing of your system. These are plants that are within the first 7 to 14 days of their life cycle, and the nutrient composition that they have, the ratios that they have, are fascinating in the sense that they're highly nutritious, 4 to 40 times more nutritious depending on the source that you look at and which species that you're actually consuming. But when we want to build up the nation, you have to start with building up yourself, right? And making sure that you can process all of this information that we're coming across as I've been studying. It is a lot. And if you're not vibing at that high level, then it's not possible, right? To keep up with the flood of the Aquarian energies that are coming through. So thank you, sister, for letting us know about the consumption of sunlight, but I also just wanted to throw that out there, the consumption of microgreens. And if anyone else has done any research, it's definitely link up, because that's what I've been heavily focusing on and what I want to bring forward to the nation.
All right.
Thank you. It's on. And there's another brother here that said he's been waking up with headaches. I don't know what.
Probably the same thing.
He's been waking up with headaches?
Waking up with headaches.
It's magnesium deficiency, I'm telling you. It's magnesium deficiency.
Magnesium deficiency?
Yes.
Where's the location of his headache?
Where he just says waking up with headaches. Brother M. Bay, all rights reserved. In the middle of your head. I mean, I'm pointing like you see me. Maybe you'll say something. I'm sorry. I got the. I'm like to say Zulu bitter crystal. Somebody told me. Somebody said hibiscus tea also.
Sometimes the location is key.
You mean, for instance, so I don't know whether your headaches are in the middle of your head, in the back of your, on your temple, and lower, base of your. see if he said.
What you said, temper.
Yeah, Sister Tia was sharing this. These are conditions linked to magnesium levels.
Right side.
Pain.
Right side of the body.
Headaches.
Yeah.
Muscle spasms.
Yeah.
Gallbladder. Lip. What is
muscle
it?
cramps.
Detox the liver and gallbladder.
You need to detox your liver and your gallbladder.
Okay.
Fibromyalgia.
Yeah, myalgia. Because a lot of people have that. You know, they are like tired and they get pain, unnecessary pains. Mental health and sleep, anxiety, depression, autism, and ADD, restless leg syndrome, insomnia, other conditions, psoriasis, acne and eczema, asthma, blood pressure, diabetes, and osteoporosis. All this has to do with magnesium.
Yeah, there's an actual touch point on your body that I can check to see if you're deficient in magnesium.
Mm-hmm.
So
I don't think they heard you on across the world.
Okay. So there's an actual test point on your body that you can actually find out if you're deficient in magnesium. So someone who is understanding and the knowledge of kinesiology can figure this out. The test point, I don't know if they can see me, but the test point is right at the navel. Okay. And that's an energy point of where you can test for magnesium deficiency. Mm-hmm. So if I test a person and they're magnesium deficient, I'm going to know right away. Because I'm going to be able to feel their energy. Mm-hmm. And if it's weak, then I know that they're magnesium deficient. So that's, when people come to see me, that's what I'm doing. I'm checking to see where your imbalances are. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Because Father Minister Imhotep said that food be your medicine, and that's still true to this day. Mm-hmm. But you need to know what you're deficient in. Right. You see what I'm saying? One person might be deficient in magnesium, another person might be, say, deficient in manganese. Manganese is a mineral that helps regulate your blood sugar levels, mm-hmm. which, if you go to the medical establishment, will tell you, you're diabetic. And so you have to know your diet, what you're putting in your system. A lot of times when I see people who are told that they're diabetic, what I find a lot is that they're eating a lot of seedless fruits. Well, if you're eating seedless fruits, seedless fruits, what they do is they block the mineral manganese. So they block your ability to regulate your blood sugar level, and also can send you into osteoporosis, make your bone density gets weaker. Yeah. You know what I mean? When you're lacking in manganese. So you have to really know your body, know thyself. So, when I'm seeing someone, I take names of diseases, I throw it out the window because that's the symptom, not the cause of the problem. I want to find out what you're deficient in. Mm-hmm. And that's how I approach it. I don't look at names of disease. I think chasing ghosts. You have to find out what the person's deficiency is, and then go about correcting that deficiency. That's how you maintain homeostasis, correcting the imbalances. Some depending on what you're doing in your life, certain things, we talk about cause and effect. Mm-hmm. Certain things that you do in your life cause deficiencies. You see what I'm saying? So a person, I tell people, you lose more vitamin and minerals with a frown than you do with a smile. Mm-hmm. So smile. You know what I'm saying? Be happy, be joyous. When you do things that are against yourself, to go around with anger and to go around with resentment and bitterness, you don't understand what that does to your body. Right. How many vitamins and minerals you lose when you walk around in those behaviors and mindsets. So a person who walks around like that all day is always going to have a lot of deficiencies. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? Because you're against the laws of nature. So when you break the laws of nature, you start to lose things. You see what I'm saying? So once you start correcting those ways of thinking and eating better and becoming more humble, you don't have those same problems. You know what I'm saying? And Taj is teaching you the laws of how to get around these imbalances, how to correct your wrongs, You got to know these things. We need, everybody in here has something to give. And so we need everybody in here. You know what I'm saying? Yes. Each one teach one. You know what I'm saying? Everybody has something to give, you know? And to collectively, we can get ourselves out of this condition.
Oh, yes.
You know, one of the things, and I'm done here, is my teacher, you know, Dr. Frank White. I was given a Quran after he transitioned. And I always believe that the first thing you see is meant for you. And when I got the pocket Quran, I took it out the pouch and I opened it up. And the very first thing that I saw was, Allah will change the condition of a people when the people decide to change the condition themselves. Yes. That was the most powerful thing I ever saw. And it's so true. You know what I'm saying? And collectively, we all here trying to change our condition.
Yes.
And we have a master teacher among us who's helping us, and I'm so grateful and thankful for him.
Wow. Thankful for you too, brother. So, the focus in this assignment, and as you already know, and you can experience, we all have this assignment. It's not just one, you know, it just happened. I happen to be going up here running my mouth. But it is all of our assignment. In this great work of assisting to raise all humanity to the higher planes of life. The higher planes of life are in reference to the consciousness connection to the ever-present high vortex ethereal energy centers of life force. And these vortexes may be referred to as energy wheels. This is the revelation of and demystification of the allegorical story mystery of Ezekiel's wheels. And we will deal more in depth with the wheels in the context of another lesson. So I want to thank you all for coming out here to the House of Reawakening Minds. And one of the child's in the house, I know you all been up there. Who's not had an opportunity to go up there and snatch some vittles before they disappear? Because it has a magical sense of disappearing.
I want to say something if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I just want to say with regard. I just want to say that with regard to what Brother Dave said. You know, after I came out of the hospital from my injury and so forth. Oh, I'm on the camera.
Oh, you don't want to be? Oh, okay.
But anyway, I want to say that I went to him and I had, what do you call it? Iridology and muscle testing. And I tell you, it turned out so many things, some of which I knew. It's real. It's real science. And it really works. And so, you know, he prescribed a bunch of things for me to take, and I was kicking and screaming. I felt drugs. He's like, they're food. It's food. It's food, Dr. Nailah. It's food. But I'm serious, though. This is something we have to take. We have to take serious. And the same thing with this Sister Tia Salud. Since she's been here with us, she's been like pumping me full of food. You know, beside the pictures I post of all the beautiful food, I'm getting pills and potassium and magnesium and this and things. But I'm saying it is so important for this work that we have to do, that we are in an optimum health as we can be. You know what I mean? And I'm just, like, I'm trying to be like my big brother. You know, he didn't grasp hold of the secret of longevity and so forth. And I celebrate his almost 72, you know, solar years on the planet this time. He's a wise sage. But he keeps going because he's young at heart. And so some of us just buy into this thing of aging and slowing down, and there's no time for that now. You know what I mean? It's no time for this. I'm on my second win. I got 53, whatever gets me to 120. Whatever gets me to 120, I got that much more to go. We got to get this straight on my watch. Because somebody told me that I was an blueprint originator, and I came back to see how it works out. So we got to make this thing happen. We got to do what it is we're supposed to do. And I think the key to it is we have to, I can't say first love one another. We got to love ourselves. We have to love ourselves enough to take care of ourselves. You know, this beautiful, wonderful food that, you know, Sister Abundance brings, this vegan food from, you know, Drop Squad Kitchen. We got to, you know, reject killing animals, you know, the birds and the fish, even though sometimes I break down the fish. We got to reject it. And we have to eat what's healthy and nutritious, and that gives, when it goes back into the earth, what it does is, help bring something else here. And so, those who, people, those of you here, speak to, Brother Dave afterwards, Those of you online, inbox me. I'm not putting his information out there like that, but just inbox me, because we know what they do with people that have this kind of knowledge. People that have information that will save our lives don't stay around long. So we have to protect our healers. You know what I mean? But by the same time, we need to be able to consult with them, especially if we have things going on with us. So it's not just about, giving you how to, beat a court case. How do I live? Those are the things that we need to know. And we are past our time. And I know that some people have had to leave. We've had people traveling from, I think family just left from North Carolina. I don't know if anybody else traveled. This is
Newport News, Virginia.
Newport News, Virginia in the house. Okay, thanks. It's long. I don't know, and anybody else, because I recognize almost everybody else, kind of, sort of. But wherever you came from and wherever you're listening from, we want you to know that we love you and we appreciate your faithfulness in tuning in, because we've been on it, hard, every Friday. This brother here came back, let's see, were you New York?
Yeah.
Okay, because somebody thought you were somebody else. They saw you.
Yeah, it was me. I thought she was another brother.
No, I was like, no, that's not him. But thank you for traveling from far and near to be here and spreading this information. And thank you for those out there that are supporting us, and thank you for those that are checking the trolls. I thank you for our troll checkers. You know what I mean? Because there's trolls out there. Every time you look, somebody's out there trying to. Instead of saying, this is great, this information is here. And this is what Brother Taj and I had a discussion about. If there's something that you hear that you think is in error a little bit, you don't use that as an opportunity. You think it is. You use it as an opportunity, if you know something better, to correct it in a way that doesn't downgrade somebody else. Because that's not what it's about.
Prophet said you have an issue, don't bring it in the street.
More than enough work for all to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so I try not to pay too much attention to trollism, but I see, the brethren online, they'll get with them. And they'll be writing stuff like, look, some of us aren't here trying to learn, take that stuff off of here. And so I don't have to do much of nothing except make this venue available. That's right. And we appreciate you, and we appreciate you. We appreciate the 18,000 plus views of last week's class, and let this one get 20,000 plus. Because it's important information that was shared here. There's so many people that need to wake up. So many people that are trying to wake up, and they don't know where to go. It's like the brother that just left, he said it's lonely out there. They came all the way up from North Carolina.
Yeah.
It's lonely, but it doesn't have to be. Right. It's enough of us that it don't have to be lonely. Right. We just need to band together and work together. Things are changing. We're going to have to be closer. In the days and weeks to come, we are going to have to be closer rather than more divided. Yes. The schism has got to stop. This is not the time for, us four and no more. It's going to take all of us together to make this thing work. And so I've said enough, but I appreciate you all. I know some of you want to see Grand Sheik afterwards. You might have paperwork or whatever, so we'll let you do that. I don't know if there's any more food left over here with Drop Squad. Nope. Oh, I love it when they sell out. Woo! She loves it too. So we love that. And as far as the sun gazing, I have been sun gazing. I found that the transom over my window is perfect for sun gazing. So I'm not with my feet aren't on the ground, but I'm looking through the transom for I'm up to I thought it was 44 seconds. This thing said 44 minutes.
Seconds. You do 10 seconds increments.
Right.
So you do 1,000, 2 1,000 till you get to 10 seconds without blinking.
I did 44.
Well, then you did good.
But you said 44 minutes.
No.
Oh, did she say 44 minutes?
No, 10 seconds up to 44 seconds.
I thought you said 44 minutes. I was like, wait a minute, I've been doing it. Pisces sister.
We have to roll the
we
tape
both
on
born
that
on
one.
March 17th. Here 44 minutes. Okay, yes. We don't forget nothing. We heard that.
Correction. 44 up to 44
seconds. You who thought thought you had to gaze at the sun for 44 minutes because you
It's 44 seconds, up to 44 seconds. But you start off with 10-second increments.
44 minutes.
And if you don't do 10 seconds, you start to count again until you master.
Oh, we did
10
that, but
seconds.
then today you said 44 minutes.
Okay, I've gone a long time though. I've done it.
And correct me if I'm wrong, y'all. Go back and listen. But I know she read 44 minutes. That's what struck me. I'm like, I've been doing seconds.
No, it's 44.
But what I'm going to say is that first, what it does is it put yellow spots when you start to look at stuff. After you've done that, everything is yellow, like you have yellow sunglasses on.
Right.
Oh, that's his computer doing that. I thought the bomb was dropping or something. But no, I'm feeling more energetic. I haven't lost that much weight because they're feeding me a lot. But we're going to see what happens in about a month. We're going to see what happens. It's easier for me to ingest than 30 pills than a pop from the day. I mean, food pills.
You can also take in the sun through the third eye.
Yes, you can.
Yes,
I do that a lot.
Just put my forehead out like that. Just.
You can see through it. Oh, you close your eyes, you still can see.
I do that.
I've got these folks already online going, we thought Dr. G had some sense, but she didn't let us in on the crazy. Let us in on the crazy. No, but we're real people. We're real people.
I mean, Brother Najib Zafar El just said, yeah, he thought it was 44 minutes too.
Yeah, because that's what
I stand corrected.
But you right, Mother CSI Lou.
It's
You good.
44 seconds.
You good.
That's what threw me. I was like, I've been doing seconds, and it was 44 minutes.
No.
Okay, but thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Next week, Grand Sheik Taj Tarik Bey. he ends the year and he begins the new year. So he'll be right back here next week. Same back time, same back channel, whatever it is. Channel. I do have flash drives. It's fine. Good night, folks. Oh, wait a minute. Here,
in general.
Here, take the mic. Here's your mic. Here.
In general, we just having some conversations, but this is in general for everyone. And we've been redundant with this, but you recognize that people's concepts are incorrect. On the flash drive, we have a short intro in Clearfield Doctrine. But you need to know what the Clearfield Doctrine is and why it's a doctrine. All right? And so what we did, we presented in a manner to try to keep it short. Clearfield Doctrine in its nature is, and why it became doctrine, which means stare decisive, is because representatives of the Clearfield Trust Company in Clearfield, Pennsylvania, in Clearfield, Pennsylvania, yes. This is the primary holding, this is the facts. This is on the surface, but keep this in mind. Primary holding, a federal court can make a common law rule regarding federal negotiable instruments since they are controlled by federal law. Now, facts, a check issued by the federal government was intercepted in the mail before it reached the intended recipient. J.C. Penney Company endorsed it after it was cashed there by the person who intercepted it and forged the endorsement. Clearfield Trust Company also endorsed the check with a guarantee of all prior endorsements and collected the appropriate sum from the Federal Reserve. 8 months after it discovered the forgery, federal government demanded Clearfield to pay on the guarantee. Now, it brought an action against Clearfield when it refused to comply. So keep in mind, it implies that Clearfield's company, person. So you got to clear these things up. And this is back to when they dispense an explanation of law and process. Keep this in mind. You got to absorb it and regurgitate it properly, because they're telling you the truth, but they always blur person and person at the same time. But I'm going to express to you what's really being said. Now, I brought an action against Clearfield when it refused to comply, but the trial court ruled that it could no longer bring the claim because it had delayed so long. In law, it's called laches. But it's beyond that. Now, the appellate court disagreed and reinstated the action. Now, this is the point. The United States operatives and the representatives for the federal government of the United States, when they created for themselves a kingship oligarchy, officially February the 2nd, 1781, but unofficially around May the 10th of 1861, when the Congress adjourned sine die. The United States Corporation, as far as its operations of legitimate government according to constitutional law, was dissolved, which means it no longer legally or lawfully existed. They have no right, no authority to make any judgments, to collect any taxes, to pretend that they're government or anything else. And any action that they've done or are doing is a fraud. And the private commercial paper that they've been collecting in the name of money also proves they have no sovereign power whatsoever, and they are no different than somebody from Sears and Roebuck's coming from behind the counter telling you that your sneaks can't be tied together on Thursday, or they're going to find you according to some statute, because they are not government. They've been operating as government, however, they're imposters. And the real argument that the representatives for Clearfield was really arguing that while the operators of the United States Service Corporation Company, which Lincoln bankrupted in 1860, which is defunct, secretly set up a bond system to put it on the descendants of the Moors, who they claim to be Negro, blacks, and colored, to back their private corporate debt. And that's the origin of the so-called national debt, because they are the nationals who are being disenfranchised. In other words, they institutionalized peonage and vassalism under the guise of slavery in 1861 with that sine die action. So what the representatives for the Clearfield Trust Company is saying, you might have did that to these dumb niggers who just believe in religion that we gave them, that's really mind control, but you ain't getting that shit off on us. And that's really what the Clearfield Doctrine really is. Really is. Now, the issue of it coming up as a strong issue in recent years and usages has much to do with middle-class Europeans, and specifically a couple of lawyers, one being a European female and a European male, who got caught up in the marriage foreclosure stuff. All right, and they had some other suits that they were dealing with, and they didn't have what you would call immediate use of derivative finances, which is not money, but it's the movement of the bond systems. All right. So therefore, they used the Clearfield Doctrine to get marriage off their butts, and they put an adverse claim on the houses. Now, logically, they don't want the masses to be aware of this, because whenever there's a foreclosure of any type, there's automatically a right of what is called adverse claim, which arises by virtue of that application. Now, fact. Any claim made by any franchise subdivisional agency of the United States, which is a private foreign corporation doing business on the land without registration, is a fraud. All right. Now, and so whenever they're coming at you, even for other things, invoke Clearfield. Be very clear on it. However, with our people, the damaging part with our people is that they usually, unbeknownst to themselves, fall under the Dred Scott Clause, which means they usually make their argument as Negroes, blacks, people of color, and or in names that don't belong to them, which makes them have no standing. And so therefore, even if their argument is absolutely correct, by them being in the dead status or Negro status, the plaintiff would be in error. And they don't want our people to figure that out too. And the Clearfield Doctrine is a perfect demonstration of that. So look at this differently. All right, and I'm going to, again, So what I did a short excerpt from lesson book 1481, Protocols of Liberty, on the clear period, but I express it from another angle, because I already know what they're really saying. And this is now from a general, stare decisive legal process. People can use Clearfield in foreclosure, any claims of any subdivisional municipality operators or agencies that come after you for any finance whatsoever, any fines, any charges, because all so-called court cases are actually commercial charges against the estate controlled by the Jesuits.
Right.
All right, has nothing to do with government.
Right.
Really at all. It's sanctum. Clearfield doctrine. But get very clear on it and be in your proper person when you make your argument. So I just wanted to interject that to you, because that will help you if you get that in your mind. Because you will give your own protocols. Once you understand, this really is what's happening today, and it's hard for a lot of people to deal with. They do not. Most of you all are in some level of scholarship. So I'm kind of talking to the choir. But for the people who don't know, they just don't get it through their head that the United States is a private foreign corporation registered in France, 1754, by Benjamin Franklin, that Lincoln bankrupted.
Right.
The whole institutionalization of forced servitude, which we call slavery, is the owners of that private corporate entity that Lincoln bankrupted, setting up a bond system against the descendants of the Moors, who are the world's wealthiest heirs, who they're supposed to be in agreement with by treaty. So in order to breach their obligations, the brand system became a political necessity. This is where the Negro, black, colored, the Indian thing has its origin. Those are brands. Now, to convince the heirs to agree to be these things, which are nom de guerre, which are war names, they lose their birthright. That's right. And the Europeans, under the rule of administering over the estate, can create what is known as a double stock trust, which is what they did, which Trafalgar talked about, which is why they killed him. Particularly when we start talking about Trafalgar stuff years back and sharing it with people. So they murdered him on his farm, turned the tractor over and said that he turned the tractor over on his farm. Now, we talked to him directly too. So the deal of this is that in 192, when he makes mention of House Joint Resolution 192, when he talks about it, and even though he's not mentioning it directly, those of you who do research know that he's talking about McFadden of 32 and 34, when they were setting up the suit against the colonists and the fake Jews who really own the United States corporation company that's been pretending to be government.
Right.
Now, our people who don't understand that reality of that politics keep going to them filing stuff, not knowing they're being played. Right. Anytime you make application to them, you're applying to a private foreign bankrupt corporate activity who get you to do business with them and then go into your state because you're volunteering. When they're actually not government, they're imposters. And this is, again, when, for those of you who've done a little social research, when Ralph Bunche went before the United Nations, just do that. Ralph Bunche went before the United Nations talking about Negro and black stuff, talking about our rights, and all the delegates of the nations got up and walked out. Yeah. And a lot of our people keep saying it was racism and prejudice. No, because he went up there calling these heirs blacks and Negroes when they know that he's a 33-degree Mason, got a Moorish fez, and come up with that nigger stuff, and they knew he was a plant by the CIA, playing that care for the Negro thing, right, which is a fraud. Right. And the world is getting tired of these Negro sellouts, who are all Masons and usually reverends, keep on putting this Negro stuff under the 14th Amendment, making our people think that they're getting some kind of rights. then making applications to the corporate United States, which is not a country, not knowing that they continue to sell birthright back to them when they have no jurisdiction. See, so what happens is Europeans who've been losing their properties, middle class, start talking about whether they're gold or silver coins and there ain't no money and all that stuff. No, that ain't the issue. It's private commercial paper. And every time you interchange with them, they turn anything that you apply with them into a surety and make a derivative bond on it and then sell it. And that's the source of their financial platform. And the root of it took place right after the Civil War, when they closed the Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Lands. And then they gave the corporate entity, the United States Corporation that Lincoln bankrupted, the designation of person in 1868. This is why the descendants of the Moors never got their 40 acres and a mule, because they themselves became the stock to back the United States Corporation debt. And the Negro preacher leaders have been paid to promote civil rights, 14th Amendment, Negro, black, colored people, spirituality under the guise of Jesus, and that has been the competitors against the restoration of your birthright and your lost estate. And it's also the nature of the case that Lincoln did with William Dungy 5 years before he was president. Just making the distinction between Negroes, blacks, and Moors. Negroes and blacks have no rights because they ain't got damn thing to do with human family. The bloodline is Moor. And that's another thing, the reason why they killed them too. And they closed the Freedmen's Bureau. And so that 14th Amendment paradigm that Drew Ali talks about in Divine Warning relates exactly to that. You know, so understand the very argument with Amistad, Ferguson versus Plessy, the Dred Scott case, is from a corporate perspective of person, the Clearfield Doctrine, 1942. And then that supersedes the Tracy versus Railroad case where they used to block out all Supreme Court or common law arguments in 39. See, so that's 42. So being greedy, they expose their own self. Europeans who know the real history use it, and our people should be told that by their black leader guys and ain't. And they always try to get you to do new commercial agreements with this man as if they're government. They are not government. Refute the fraud and revert to make claim or right of reversion of your estate. That's a proclamation. That's why Drawley said, if you don't do anything else, proclaim the nationality. Go ahead, brother. But again, the Clearfield Doctrine is the nature of what that is. Meaning that the principle behind the argument is what you need to look at, not just the action. And so the Europeans were covered up by arguing, well, there ain't no money, and therefore we do this process or that, or because there ain't no money. There is money. What it is that they're dealing with a global estate trust that they set up after the fall of the Red House, which is the Alhambra, which is why they make the adjustment of the fiscal reckoning January the 1st, because that's when the Red House fell. At near midnight, January 1st, 1492, the Red House fell, and from there, that's the conversion of all the estates of the Moors into the hands of the Dutch-German masters under the Inquisition operations called the Spanish Inquisition. That's the foundation of all of world political politics across the planet Earth. And anybody's a scholar knows that. That's why people who really want to help our people don't have too much patience with so-called black people. No, because they know that scholars know better. But they ain't teaching their own people. They keep on teaching belief systems that they know damn well ain't got nothing to do with reality. And all scholars know this because that's the politics of the world. In other words, clear, be clear. Clearfield, be clear. Spanish Inquisition is the foundation of all contemporary political, war, and regional actions on Earth planet for the last few hundred years. And any scholar that's alleging or even implying or even breathing that they're trying to help these so-called people of color and don't tell them about the Spanish Inquisition and the real politics, and they gonna tell you about UCCs or authenticating birth certificate, anything like that. When that's where it's rooted, they're COINTELPRO. And that's what they don't want people to figure out. However, the Clearfield Doctrine is Europeans that just ain't playing with it. And they said, y'all ain't pulling that nigger shit on us. Y'all do that to these dummies who don't read. Right. And Clearfield is really what that really is. So don't look at the issue of latches. That gives an argument for the masses to look at and say, well, see, what they didn't do is file it in time to make the claim in time. No. The deal of it is that these people going after them have no sovereign authority to do shit. Right. And you cannot call private commercial paper money when it ain't money. Therefore, it ain't counterfeit. And so a forgery can't argue a forgery.
Because that's novation. That's novation.
In other words, a colored person can't argue about color of law.
Islam, brother. You mentioned a court case. You said that they used to refute different arguments. I was wanted to ask, what was that court case you mentioned?
What, the Tracy versus Railroad?
That
case, and you look that up, and that's on your flash drive. And then look that up, and that's about 1939. And this is where the corporate states operators, because you got to remember, so now let's put things in context. Remember when Drawley registered the Holy Temple of Science as a civic organization in 1925, that crashed another United States corporation shell. So they had to reconstruct another corporation shell in 1925. That's why I show you those documents, so that you can understand that there's a continuation of them setting up corporate shells, which are United States corporations. Right. Lincoln bankrupted one. Drawley bankrupted two. And on the second one, this is where the infiltration COINTELPRO operations came in, and where J. Edgar Hoover, Calvin Coolidge set up the platform for later, where Franklin Delano Roosevelt then used the birth certificates as bank bonds because they was bankrupt again. Right. And it bankrupted anyway. This is what Trafficant was talking about, and this is where McFadden was talking. Lewis McFadden in 1932 and in 1934, when they were setting up a suit against them. Then when he went to visit his daughter in New York, they poisoned him. You know, so those who know, or any of you who've ever talked to Trafficant personally, or talked to some of the Europeans, because I've talked to Europeans across this country, and many of these people with these sovereignty groups, including, you know, Emily Ford used to come to one of my classes, the Roundtable in Jersey, and she's very wealthy. And she's one of the writers for Higher Truth magazine. And you might hear Julie talk about her sometime. And Phil Marsh, and a lot of other Europeans, like say in like 88, 89, in that area, in that time, they used to call me a lot of times, and sometimes they used to come to my classes. Their classes cost $1,500. I was giving stuff free and feeding people. Mm-hmm. Do you understand? Now, Emily had came to Brother Alim's house where I was giving classes. And she asked me about what was my opinion on why some of the Europeans were having problems. And she called them white people. Right. You know, with the sovereignty groups, with feelings in some of them. You know, that's a lot of those active European sovereignty groups. Right. And I said, number one, when you claim to be white people, you gave up your birthright too. And I asked her, I said, what's your nationality? What's your mother's nationality? She said, well, my father is Polish and my mother is German or something like that. What? No, she said, yeah, I think something like that. And I said, well, whoever your mother is, that's your nationality. And I said, and you got to remember, when the Europeans who are here in the North, who agreed to be white, are agreed to be white under the Whitmore Party, which is why you took on the title of white. And so they have structured benefits. And then you can't talk against the system. This is the reason why you as citizens cannot speak against the ens legis of the United States.